me a minute. Good. Good morning, members. If we can call to order, morning. Morning. Good, thank you very much. Welcome to what is our fifth AGM under the new governance we put in 5 years ago. It's actually my fifth AGM as chair, and those of you who were around 5 years ago, we were in this room, and the reason we've not been in this room for 5 years, it's taken me 5 years to get over being in the room at that particular day. One of the things I learnt was there's a housekeeping video going on in the background, and there'll be no fire alarms, and on every piece of paper that tells you how to get out, so all the housekeeping stuff should be in order. I'm usually going to slightly change the beginning of this because, as you know, we have elections for member-nominated directors. Normally we leave that at the end, which isn't really particularly good for the member-nominated directors who are up for election, who sort of wait through the whole thing. This year there were two member-nominated director places for election. The candidates were Paul Chandler, Gareth Thomas and Sarah McCarthy-Fry, and having gone through the results, Paul and Sarah have been elected as member-nominated directors. So, a round of applause to them. Unfortunately, Gareth Thomas, who's been a member-nominated director, didn't get through, and I want to pay tribute to him. He's actually been a very good MMD. He was John Lewis, brought a lot of stuff for us. Importantly, if you remember a year ago, I came up here and this little boy, my little grandson, had been born an hour before I came on the stage, and we were saying that you know, he's the latest co-op member. So I thought, he's a year on, you might want to have a look at what he looks like now. This is him on the left with his sister. That's co-op at Wetherby, which is where my daughter shops. As you can see, he's got a full bag in the back of the car, but that's his sister Ava, who's 3, who said to me, "Grandpa, women have equality these days. If Alf is in the photographs, I want to be in the photograph." It's quite relevant, really, because you know, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is the future. You know, we've talked too much about the past, and the most important thing for us is the future. And if you think about it, you know, we're 175 years old. And the critical thing for us, the legacy we've got to leave, is that in 175 years' time, people are standing here talking about co-op and the co-op movement and being a cooperator and what all of those things mean. And hopefully you'll start to get a flavour of that today, because you know, there's no time to look back. If you look at what's happening in the country at the moment, it's probably never been as divided as it has been. Brexit has caused a great division, and we've just got challenges on every front. And the challenges, in a strange way, are not to do with Brexit. It's to do with homelessness. It's about mental health. It's about how we look after people. It's about the NHS. It's all of these things that have sort of been left while, you know, our politicians dither and dally over all the things Brexit, when it would have been easier to find some sort of solution. So we've got to find a different way of thinking. You know, we believe, and I know you believe, that the co-op could be very much and should be very much at the front of that, because all the things that we do have never been more relevant than they are today, and we've got to make sure that that relevance comes across all ages. And when I think about all ages, you know, last night we had a reception. We had the foundation there, which is really all about youth. We had the young board there, clearly all about youth. And we had 2 or 3 people from our academies that are all about youth. And I just wanted to say, I don't know, I think all of you heard Sean playing this morning on that stage. I mean, what a tremendous performance that is from a young guy. And he's one of our academy guys, and we should be very, very proud of him. So, Sean, thank you very much. So let's move on to some of the formal business. So first of all, introduction of people on the platform who you all know, all members. Steve Murrells, of course, is our Chief Exec. Ian, who's our Chief Financial Officer. Stevie Spring, who heads up REMCOM. Helen, who's our legal counsel and group secretary, and Nick, of course, everybody knows, who's the council president. We've got all of the board are here, including Simon Burke, who runs our audit committee, and Ernest Young are also here, our auditors. So anybody that anybody needs to talk to are here. The plan for the day goes a bit like this. Ian's going to start just with a brief update on 18 for performance and financials, and then a group from Steve, Joe Whitfield, who you know is the Chief Executive of our food business, will talk a little bit. Steve is going to do an update on Remco, and then Nick will talk about all things co-op and council. When we've gone through that, as always, we'll have our Q&A. The Q&A will be about all of the motions and any general points anybody wants to take. And as always, we've got a growing online base of people who, you know, digitally like to join in to our AGM who can't be here physically. I've got Adam here. Adam, wave your hand. Adam, who was the chair of the young board. He'll help me on terms of where we are with the digital, and then we'll do all the voting at the end of that. And then when we've done that, we'll give you a really good glimpse of the future. Steve will come back, and Rebecca Burbeck, who's our Director of Community, and they'll start to shape and show you some of the things that we talked about today. So, some good things to cover, and I'm sure we'll have a great time. So let me hand over to Ian, who will just go through the financials. Ian.
Thanks, Alan, and good morning, everybody. What we do know is to be a successful co-op, we need to be strong commercially. And that's captured in our stronger co-op, stronger communities. We care not only about what we do, but how we do it, bringing to life our co-op values and principles. You will have seen the coverage of our numbers in the press, and that was good. The solid performance that we've had allowed us to talk about some of the things that we do differently, the co-op difference. So at a headline, our sales were strong. They hit £10 billion, helped by the acquisition of NISA and a great performance in food retail. That's the top line. And at the bottom line, our profit before tax was up 27% to 93 million. A solid performance supported by our non-trading activities. The key measure that we use, underlying profits before tax, and you'll remember that that measures the profits generated from our business units, less the interest to finance them, was in line with the 2017 performance at £43 million. What's important to remember is that profit is after charging £60 million, which we've returned to members for the 5%, and the 19 million we funded local causes with, through the 1% and carrier bag sales, benefiting members and communities spread right across the country. Some other businesses may have let this drop through to bottom line into profit, but investing in communities is just one of the ways we demonstrate that co-op difference. In terms of debt, we remain comfortably within our debt and interest targets. The increase driven mainly by the acquisition of NISA and continued investment in the business. We invested 414 million in main on new stores and refits, re-emphasising our community presence, and we also invested in our funeral business and technology right across the piece. In terms of the individual businesses, food had a great year, like-for-like sales of 4.4%. That is actually 5 consecutive years of like-for-like growth in our food business, an absolute fantastic performance, and any retailer would give their right arm to have a performance like that. That drove, you can clap them if you want, yay! So a fantastic performance. And that drove a fantastic increase in profits as well, up 12%. Wholesale made a loss in the year, but that was expected. It was driven by the one-off acquisition costs and the migration costs as NICE now becomes part of the Co-op family. To funerals and life planning, here it was tougher. The market is experiencing rapid and immense change. There was a sharp drop in operating profits from 42 million to 25 million, reflecting the lower volume of at-need services provided, driven in part by the death rate, which was lower, and our continued focus to address funeral affordability and choice. We've seen the simple offer and the cremation without ceremony grow in popularity as people make an active choice for their loved ones. Just as a remember that funeral plans sold under the new accounting rules don't affect the year in which they are sold. We record the sale when we actually fulfil the funeral. What we do know is that we need to improve in this area, and we're in the process of actually looking at what we do and how we do it. Our legal business, whose numbers are included within the funeral and life planning business, performed well. It saw good growth in probate cases and will writing, handling round about 25,000 legal cases within the year. On to insurance. In January, we announced the sale of our underwriting business and putting in place a long-term distribution agreement for insurance. This will be great for our members and our customers. They will be able to get more areas covered by us, and they'll also be able to get that cover cheaper. The sale will keep many of the jobs within the business as well, because some of the operations will actually be maintained within the Manchester area. From our accounts, insurance is shown as discontinued, a discontinued operation, with a loss of 230 million on the sale. But that doesn't include the income we will receive in the future from that distribution agreement, which will more than cover that loss. And remember, although we talk about a sale, it's not a done deal yet. It's still subject to regulatory approval. Two more things I just mentioned before I hand over. First, a great way to show our difference. Our pension trustees have decided to invest £50 million in social housing. That'll be 1,000 homes aimed at key workers, a great example of working together. It's a sound investment, it's a great return on it, and it's socially responsible. Our Co-op difference in practice. And secondly, one to watch for next year. Our accounts next year will be even harder to understand, if that was possible. You can laugh louder than I'm laughing at about it, I can tell you. If it was possible. In 2019, there's a big accounting change coming. It changes the way we show the rent that we pay in our stores and in our homes. As I say, it'll make it harder to understand, and just to bring that to life, the rent we pay will not be charged to profit next year. So that's the sort of difficulties we're going to be coping with as we try to understand it. So, progress in 2018, absolutely great, fantastic year. 2019 looks challenging. We've got Brexit, we've got food competition, changing funeral markets. However, what we do know is that we're well placed to meet those challenges and create and drive that stronger Co-op and stronger communities. I'm around for questions later if you want to ask me any. And we mentioned Alistair from EY, who sat on table 87, sorry. He wanted me to say 7, but it's 87, in case people want to go and hunt him out. And with that, I'll hand over to Steve for his review of the year. Thank you very much.
Ian, thank you. Good morning, everybody. In fact, Ian, it's not your time to sit down, so if you could just stand up a second. I don't know whether many of you know, but this is Ian's last AGM. He retires after today. I know he looks far too young to retire. He's been a brilliant CFO for the group. He's been a personal friend to me, the exec, and hundreds of Co-op colleagues, and he's been an outstanding cooperator. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to say anything, Ian. But we have a small gift of our final gifts to you this week, care of one of our little delivery robots. Now, I did ask for a Magnum for you, but it's a bottle of
the ice cream?
Well done. Congratulations.
Thanks, everybody.
So let me tell you a little bit more about this box of tricks just before it leaves the stand. In the past, we used to use bicycles to deliver groceries door to door. You probably remember that, Ian. Now we're using these robots in Milton Keynes. They're the first automated grocery delivery service, and it's just one example of co-op innovation in action, of what it looks like to stay modern and what it looks like to be relevant. And our customers in Milton Keynes are loving it, judging by the sales. You can go now, whoever is driving the robot. And if that didn't get you excited, here's another example of 21st century innovation behind me on the screen. These delivery bikes are a lot bigger than they were 175 years ago and can carry a whole lot more. We're testing them in our London stores and see if our customers like the idea. This is what Back to the Future looks like at the Co-op. Now, Ian's talked to you through a great set of numbers, but we can't move forward without saying thank you to the people who make this possible, our thousands of colleagues. Now, they serve our members and customers in stores, and they keep the shelves well stocked. They get our products to stores by working around the clock. They sell great insurance products and look after you when a crisis happens. They help draw up our wills, and they see families through difficult probate, and they arrange wonderful farewells to loved ones. But they're also the colleagues you may not immediately think of, like our call centre teams who help our members and our customers with any questions that they have, and those protecting our businesses from cyber attacks, and the colleagues who make sure we're modern and inclusive in all that we do. To deliver our success, we need brilliant people led by inspirational leaders. And that's what we have at the Co-op. And so I want to say a huge thank you for all that our colleagues did during 2018. A great year. And we'll talk more about colleagues as we go through the morning and the difference that they're making. Now, this time last year, I shared with you our renewed ambition to create a stronger co-op and stronger communities. And as Alan has said earlier, this way of thinking has been at the heart of cooperation for 175 years. The better we do as a business, the more good we can do in our communities. And as these communities recognise the difference that we're making, they'll choose co-op more and more. You can sum it up all by simply saying, whenever you choose co-op, it does good. And of course, the more you spend, the more good you can do. Ian gave us those figures this morning of how our co-op is getting commercially stronger. And so I'd like to highlight 4 key business decisions that we took last year and that show how we're setting ourselves up for long-term success. And it is all about growth. So here's how we're doing it. Firstly, we extended our reach to find new customers and members through wholesaling, through franchising, festivals, and home delivery. We bought Simplify Probate to become the #1 probate provider in the UK. We're going to reach more into insurance customers with more products, and we're returning to healthcare because we know there's lots to do to improve physical and mental health up and down the country. So let me tell you a bit more about each of these. Buying nicer is a major step change for us. It means that we're dramatically extending the reach of our co-op brand. Our products are going into more than 4,000 extra stores, and we're now seeing more than £2 million a week in sales of our own branded products from those stores alone. That means that the co-op brand is now in hundreds of thousands of new homes across the UK. And growing in this way has met the challenge set for us by the Council in 2016 after we took some of those tough decisions to sell some of our smaller stores. At a time when food retail remains intensely competitive, where scale is critical to our success, we're doing the right things. And our food products aren't just delicious, they tell a great story about who we are and what we stand for. Ian again highlighted a 12% rise in profits from our food business last year. And that shows that the investment in product development and in logistics and in our availability is starting to really pay off. We've had an incredible summer, helped by a warm weather and England's performance in the World Cup. But you can only take advantage of that with excellent planning and great offering on the shelves. The bottom line was we had more customers putting more in their baskets than they have done for 7 years. Now, there are other ways that we're growing. We're moving into franchising. This is Leeds University, where we've worked with the students to open a shop right inside the Union building. I can tell you from my own visit this week, it looks amazing. Overnight, it's become one of our most successful food-to-go stores. Each week, it's taking £100,000 from 30,000 customer transactions, and it's run by students, 4 students, and it's created 60 jobs on the campus. So franchising can help us reach places and people that it's been hard to get to in the past, and in this case, reaching more young people. Now, we have 4 franchise stores today, with a target of 16 more by the end of this year, including other campuses. And next up is the University of Kent. Another way that we've been introducing ourselves to new customers is through festivals. Last year, we went to Download, Latitude, Reading and Leeds. Each festival, the team set up a 6,000 square foot store to cater for 200,000 festival goers. And it's working. So this year, we're doubling our festival passes from 4 to 8, including the big one. This year, we go to Glastonbury. Now, we know our values chime with younger people, so this is where we need to be. No other retailer can occupy this space. And it's worth knowing that the average age of a Glastonbury festival goer is 39, which is my age group. And as we quickly discovered last summer, festival goers like me and Joe Whitfield love to drink tea as well as drinking beer. So festivals are introducing us to new customers across several generations and getting our products into their hands. We're also reaching out to new customers in other businesses. By buying Simplify Probate, we became the biggest probate provider in the country and introduced Co-op to many new families. Building our strength in probate is part of the strategy to address funeral affordability and other families' unique holistic support through the most difficult of times. We did research on bereavement last year, and it told us that paying for a funeral can cause real financial difficulty. By helping with probate, we help families to pay for a funeral through the estate of the deceased, rather than having to find the money up front. In insurance, the changes that we're making will get more products to more members. You might think that selling our insurance underwriting business will mean that we'll be selling less insurance. It's in fact the complete opposite. Carrying the underwriting risk has meant that our profits could be wiped out at any point of bad weather. Instead, our new capital light model means we can concentrate on developing new insurance products tailored to the needs of you, our members. Having produced no new products for 7 years, we've launched 4 since our last AGM, and they're all addressing the specific needs. We've launched a product for student renters, a car care policy, life cover, and we're testing pay-per-mile insurance. And unlike other products on the market, our life insurance product offers the option of 2 payment breaks for those times when you have to prioritise over other needs. As we did with our new travel product, we're using member input to design these new products and offerings so that we have a positive Co-op twist that addresses the needs that you've highlighted to us throughout the year. Insurance is going to be a big part of who we are in years ahead. And the final example of growth is the new business venture that we've been launching today. It's called Co-op Health, and it's the start of something very important to us. We've always cared about the nation's health, and when we explored the challenges in the world of health today, this was an area that stood out for us. We learned that over 40% of the financial burden on the NHS is due to preventable diseases, and yet currently only 4% of the health budget is spent on that prevention. And there's another issue that we want to address too. As we all know, the NHS is overstretched. So we want to enter the health space in a way that addresses the pressures on the NHS today and reduces that in the future. We'll be using our digital capability and our physical presence in communities up and down the country to give our members and customers more control of their health needs. Our first venture is the new app that we're launching today on repeat prescription services. It will make ordering repeat prescription easier and far more efficient than it is through the NHS. Here's a short video that explains it a bit more.
We can't rely on our existing businesses to provide the commercial future that we need. We need to look for new opportunities within the co-op. Health bubble to the surface is something that felt very cooperative.
The NHS is one of the best healthcare systems in the world, but we know it's struggling, and we've all got a role to play in changing that. 4 out of every £5 that the NHS spends are being spent on conditions that are entirely preventable. So we've been listening to the NHS, we've been listening to the government, and we've been listening to our members, our customers, and the people in our communities.
The research that we've done shows that a lot of those people aren't satisfied with the service that they get from regular traditional pharmacy. And we've got a long history. We used to operate the 3rd largest pharmacy business in the UK. There's 30 million people in the UK that have repeat prescriptions month in, month out, and that's like nearly half of the population.
We're combining a secure NHS connection, which sends the orders directly into the GP system, with our own online pharmacy. Every pharmacy in England is featured on there.
Our app is the only end-to-end pharmacy app that connects directly with the GP, and that means that you can see the medicines that are actually live on your GP's system and order those medicines in real time. You can go through the whole process from ordering the prescription through to fulfillment, delivery to your home, or even click and collect to a co-op food store and see the progress of that prescription right the way through the process.
So this way of placing prescription orders, the NHS says, is more efficient. It saves time in GP surgeries, and it's actually safer because it reduces the risk of errors being made as people are transferring information from one place to another. So we hope that those pharmacies that receive orders from our app will benefit from that as well.
We're not going into this to compete with the NHS, we want to work in partnership with them. In fact, the NHS has pioneered the technology that we purchased with Dimec that powers our app and makes it different to all of the other services out there in the market. So what we're releasing as this first edition of the app isn't the complete vision that we have for it in the future. We'll be rolling out regular releases with new features and new products on as part of the app. For example, the ability to book a GP appointment that increases and develops that ecosystem and makes it a place that our members and customers want to go for their health needs.
And so the beauty of growing digitally is that you don't need to actually have the full offer available from day one. Instead, you can build and learn, refine and expand as you go. We're not everywhere yet, but we're growing our reach month by month. And by the end of this year, our repeat prescription service should be available across England by 98%. And as we develop the app, we'll be adding new services, as Tim said, GP appointment bookings, as well as offering more help on how to stay fit and healthy and prevent getting ill in the first place. Our Co-op Health team are in the marketplace. You may have seen them already this morning, and they can answer any questions that you may have. So why not pop along and see them later on? And they can also show you the health stations that we're testing in some of our food stores, where you can check your weight, your blood pressure, and your BMI. You can even get a personalised health report. Finally, I'd also like to thank our council members, and in particular, our New Opportunities Advisory team, gosh, that rolls off the tongue, who have really helped us develop our thinking on this major project for the future. The way we're thinking about health is just one example of what it means to be Stronger Co-op by being a responsible co-op. Cooperative values and principles at the heart of how we run our business today. And for us, that responsibility takes more forms. Another example is our growing commitment to fair trade, reflected in Motion 10 today. At the Co-op, we remain absolutely committed at a time when other retailers continue to pull back or create alternative ethical brands. We know that fair trade is the gold standard, and anything else is just watering down the ethics and confusing customers. In 2018, we grew sales by 6%, whilst our competitors saw their sales drop by 12%. We sell 4 times more than you would expect of a retailer our size, and 33% more than Tesco in total. So it's more important than ever that we've continued to champion the fair trade cause. In 2019, a responsible business must also be a business that's concerned about climate change. And at the Co-op, we care about the world we share. We always have. And we care about the world we'll pass on to our children. And so for us, this must be a priority. Climate change and sustainability is the reason why we launched our Future of Food programme last summer. We're committed to 100% sustainable soya because we must protect the world's soil from permanent damage. Our palm oil has been sustainable since 2005. And as you may have read this week, we've reduced our food waste by nearly 30% since 2015. That's been helped greatly by our food share partnerships, which are supporting people in need across more than 800 locations. So far, we've given 3.2 million food items for people and their families who need our helping hand. Now, you may recall our long-term aim was to halve our direct greenhouse emissions by 2020. Well, we achieved that target 3 years early. So now we're going even further and aiming to halve our direct emissions again by 2025. At last year's AGM, you told us that you were concerned about plastic in packaging. We've been on this issue for some while, as you know, and we're well ahead of the competition. Our plastic packaging footprint is half that of the industry average, and last November we introduced the UK's first compostable bag. In the spirit of cooperation, we're sharing that technology for free to anyone who wants it. And going forward, we must continue to play our part in pushing climate change up the agenda and showing by example that being responsible makes good business sense. Now, our commitment to climate change is reflected in one of the motions you'll be voting on shortly, Motion 11 on responsible sourcing, which has been put forward by the Council. The clearest demonstration of our passionate commitment to our business responsibility is in the work that we do in local communities. So how are we helping our communities to become stronger? Since 2016, when we launched the new Community Fund, our members have given nearly £40 million back to local causes. The money has helped 12,000 projects across the UK, from Scouts to Girl Guides to women escaping from a domestic abuse. And last year, 4,000 causes each received on average £5,500. So now we're ready to take our community thinking to the next level. We'll have much more to say about this later this morning. Our support for local causes is not the only way that we're making communities stronger. At our last AGM, I told you how we're going to dramatically increase the number of schools that we support in some of the most deprived areas in the north of England. And by 2022, we'll have 40 co-op academies, and we're already halfway there. That will be 40,000 pupils receiving a co-op education with a co-op outlook on life, using cooperative values of fairness, of self-responsibility and respect for themselves and for others. And these schools are turning around the life chances for thousands of young people. The Trust Ofsted reports show that we're moving schools from a grading of inadequate to a grading of good in just a few years. Now, there's someone that we need to thank today, a man who's been at the heart of our academy work for many years. Frank Norris has been the director of Co-op Academies Trust for the last 6 years. And this summer, he's sadly stepping down from the role. Frank is one of the country's most respected leaders in education, and we've been privileged to have him lead the Trust and set it up for expansion. I'm pleased to say that Frank actually will be staying on in an advisory role. And I know Frank's here. Frank, if you could just stand up, please, for a moment. And on behalf of our co-op and thousands of co-op educated children, thank you for everything that you do, Frank. You really do make the difference. At the end of last year, our council voted to begin a new campaign, a campaign that we called Safer Colleagues and Safer Communities. It sets out to address the rise in crime and the impact that it's having on our communities. To tell us more, I'd like to welcome onto the stage our Chief Exec, Joe Whitfield.
Thank you, Steve. This important campaign is about crime and the causes of crime, and it focuses on how we're protecting our own colleagues and how we're going to tackle the causes of the problem so that we don't just move it to other parts of the community. Like all of you, I've been shocked by the stories of rising crime over the last year. All around the country, we've all seen the press and the media coverage. In January, figures recorded by the police in England and Wales showed a 19% increase. And this issue is real for many of our stores and communities across the country. Last year, there were more than 1,200 violent attacks on our colleagues. It's completely unacceptable that our colleagues have to come to work and face that. We are clear, this is not a crime against stock. We can replace that. This is a crime against people. Often, our colleagues face violence because they're trying to enforce the law and do their jobs. For example, by refusing to sell cigarettes and alcohol to underage customers. To demonstrate the challenge being faced, let me tell you what happened to one of our colleagues, Jan Bunker, a store manager in Southampton, who's worked for the co-op for many years. During a 10-week period from February through to April last year, Jan's store was the target of 4 armed robberies, all committed by the same criminal gang. Initially, the gang used crowbars, but with each new robbery, there was a new weapon. First crowbars, then knives, and finally guns. Jan talked to me about the fear she felt the first time it happened. She and one of the team ended up barricaded in the back office as the gang left with cash and cigarettes. And after 4 robberies, every colleague in Jan's store had been a victim of crime at least once. They were screamed at, they were told they would be stabbed if they didn't open the safe, they were told their friends in the store would be beaten or shot if they didn't get the money straight away. We did our very best to support them. We arranged on-site counselling for all the colleagues, which really helped them, and they said they really valued. We made security improvements at the store. We gave the team personal panic alarms. We invested in new high-tech CCTV and extra street lighting. Despite what she'd been through, Jan was an absolute rock. She's a wonderful lady, and I'm delighted to say that she was named Co-op Leader of the Year in the Southern region for the support that she'd given her own colleagues, but even more, the colleagues in neighbouring stores who've been affected by the same gang. She was outstanding. Thankfully, the gang that attacked her store have been caught, convicted and are serving time. And that's in part due to the evidence that we helped to gather for the police. To tackle the issue we face, over the last 3 years, we've put in place £70 million worth of crime prevention measures. And we're continually rolling out new technology across our store estate. More CCTV, which is intelligent and can gather evidence to help our partner CCOM pass that to the police and secure convictions. Better lighting outside of the store. More training on what to do if confronted by a robber or a shoplifter. Putting guards in place when a store would really benefit. Fewer co-op colleagues are now victims of crime compared to the national figures of crime against shop workers. In the last 2 years, 70% of our stores have experienced no violent attacks at all. But that isn't good enough if you're one of the 30% that have. We will do our best to protect our colleagues, but we have to do more if we're serious about this, and we really are. You might think it's our smaller stores that are most at risk, or stores where there are fewer colleagues working on a shift. But all of the data shows that's not the case. There are other reasons that are more significant, location being one of them. In addition to protecting colleagues, we need to focus on how we change the conditions that create the crime in stores, by campaigning and by investing in community action. So we're working with the Shop Workers Union, Usdaw, and with members of Parliament who are showing a special interest in this subject. We've spent time in Westminster, and as a result, the government is now asking for evidence to help them understand the true scale of the violence and abuse being suffered by shop staff across the retail industry. We've been mobilising, encouraging, and helping our colleagues to come forward with their stories. So far, almost 100 brave colleagues have recorded and submitted their testimonies. That's a really significant number for a government inquiry. These personal stories will build a strong case for changes in the law and the judicial system. But what about tackling the root causes of crime in our communities? Since 2016, our members have given £4 million to more than 1,200 projects which are tackling the root causes of crime, such as unemployment and drug abuse. We know that police forces across the country are stretched. Today, there are 20,000 fewer frontline police officers than there were in 2010. We've also seen cuts to the criminal justice system. So we want to develop community-based ideas that can make a local difference and are affordable. And then we'll share what we've learned across the country. The Co-op has always believed in the importance of training and skills. It's another way we know we can make a long-term difference to people's lives. So today, we're beginning a really special partnership which will help young people from falling into a life of crime and instead lead them to have happy and productive lives. We're going to work with the Damilola Taylor Trust, based in Peckham in South London. You may remember the murder of 10-year-old Damilola Taylor in November 2000 in a terrible knife attack as he headed home from Peckham Library after school. And as a mum of boys myself, I cannot begin to imagine how traumatic his loss was to his family. After 3 long trials, Damilola's killers were eventually brought to justice. And at the time of the killing, they were aged just 12 and 13 years old. There are so many young lives being destroyed by knife crime. The trust was set up by Damalola's father, Richard Taylor, in 2001. It works to give young people at risk from violence opportunities that can change the course of their lives. It's widely praised and acknowledged by experts and community leaders. And we've just agreed to fund the Careers Search and Skills Development Programme for the Trust, which provides support to young people from across London. And in addition, our colleagues are going to be fundraising in 80 stores across London for the Trust. So I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Richard Taylor OBE, who's the driving force of the Trust's work. Come this way, Richard. So Richard, on behalf of everyone, we want to thank you for coming to Manchester and also to thank you for the inspirational work you're doing in memory of your son. We really appreciate you coming. I think to start with the first question, we'd really value you explaining to us the size of the challenge that you think we're facing into.
Yes, first of all, I have to thank the management of Co-op and the shareholders for this great opportunity being given to the Damilola Taylor Trust to work in partnership with the charity. We have been faced with great challenges over the years. About 18 years now, we've been working as a charity across London and then in some states and in some part of the UK. Particularly, we did some work in Manchester over the years. So the challenges are so enormous that even the present day challenges with the increase, the surge in knife crime has been very difficult to accommodate with our program. But we have marched on, we have done a lot with the little resources we have access to, and we've gotten positive results, but the challenges are still there because young people are still right bent to go ahead and carry knives, and because they don't value lives, but we are working with them. We are doing a lot. The Career Search and Skills Project is one of our success. It was delivered last year successfully. And I'm happy to say that today, from last year's success, we were able to deliver 2 young people into working in the city. One was a car park attendant. We recruited them from the community amongst the underprivileged, white, black, Asian, and it cuts across the whole community. So this particular man, was a car park attendant in Peckham, and we were able to engage a financial organization that wanted to support them into job experience and internship. So after all the job experience projects and work experience and internship, 2 of them were engaged fully as full-time workers. So this car park attendant, to our own joy and happiness, is now wearing suits, putting on tie, and shoulder to shoulder with the MD of the financial organization, travel all over the world, So we were so impressed, for the positive outcome. But the negative outcome that we have been challenged with is the surge that we are still addressing. And with projects like this that we are going to be engaged with in collaboration with Co-op, we will make sure that we get such a high percentage of success, when we finally complete the project. It's going to be started around September this year, and hopefully we'll be able to finish by the end of 2020.
Lovely. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
And as we move forward and work in communities ourselves, if there was one thing you wanted us to understand about the young people that you work with, what would it be?
Well, the challenges that the young people face is the most important aspect in their life, because young people, to me or to us in the charity and to the generality of the people in the community, parents, is that the inability of those young people to have such opportunities that is here being offered by Co-op. Many of them have this problem of accessing such opportunities, and because they are so constrained to the community, or they live in an area where they don't even know where London Bridge is. So those are the kind of challenges those young people have, and with the introduction of this project, we will be able to open up the horizon of these young people, to show them that there is opportunity for them to get into various activities, get into jobs, and change their life, because for them, life of crime, sale of narcotics, alcohol, dysfunctional family has often burdened their future, because they don't see the future, the positive side of life, and with this we'll be able to open those doors, and help them. Those are the group that Co-op will assist to get out of their enclave.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. We really look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So there's a motion that you'll be asked to vote on later this morning, which commits us to a comprehensive approach to keeping colleagues safe and tackling crime in our communities. I hope you'll support it and us as we push forward to create change. Thank you so much, and I'll now hand back to Steve. Thank you.
It's powerful, isn't it? Now, there's another partnership that we're announcing this week, which Richard knows well because he's a supporter of their work. And that partnership is with a charity called Steel Warriors that take knives off the streets and turns them into outdoor gyms. And you can see our modelling in the picture behind me. They melt down knives confiscated by the police, and they turn them into something positive and life-enhancing. And for 2019, we've identified 2 outdoor locations where we'll work with Steel Warriors to build the gym equipment. And we're aiming to do this in 20 other locations by 2022, prioritising deprived areas of the UK where youth crime is a real big issue. Over time, this will be a multi-million-pound investment in tackling crime and creating improved public spaces. Most importantly, for each new gym that we create, we'll also recruit warrior mentors from the local community and sponsor them to run 3 training sessions each week. I hope you'll agree that our Safer Colleagues, Safer Communities campaign is a very Co-op approach to the challenges that we face as a business and as a country. And this is what the Co-op difference is starting to look like. And it's why whenever you choose Co-op, you are doing good. Let me finish by going back to our colleagues. To build a stronger Co-op and create those stronger communities, we need colleagues who feel listened to, who feel respected, and who are valued. And our colleagues are the greatest advocates that we have in the Co-op today, and their well-being is our highest priority. Making them safer in the workplace is one example of that. And another important decision that we took last year was to give our colleagues more help around managing debts and personal finance. So as well as promoting co-op credit unions, which we've done for years, we've also partnered with Neighbour, a financial well-being company, to offer a trusted alternative to payday loans. These are affordable loans that are repaid directly from our payroll system. And the idea is that we help our colleagues switch existing loans, which they're struggling to pay back, to our fair and manageable alternative. We can all be incredibly proud of all of our colleagues, and especially the 13 finalists that we're celebrating today through the Being Co-op Awards ceremony. And by the way, there were over 3,000 nominations for this year's Colleague Awards, and so we're not short of brilliant people with bags full of co-op commitments. And we've got our Being Co-op winners in the room today. If you could all just stand up for a moment, give us a wave. Huge congratulations to all of you. You can sit down. That's all from me for the moment. I'm going to hand you back to Alan now. Thanks very much for listening.
Well done, Steve. Good. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Joe. So I think time for REMCOM, Stevie. So if you'd all welcome Stevie Com, Chairman of the REMCO, give us our REM report.
Thank you to Alan. Good morning, everyone. Back again at Manchester Central. Can't believe it's my 4th AGM in the Co-op REMCO hot seat. And I'm really pleased to be able to report more good progress this year with more transparency, and for the first year of our new bonus plan, giving even more alignment to our strategy and to the things that matter most. So hopefully you'll all have had the chance to see some of this for yourselves in our remuneration report. And I have to say I've been absolutely delighted with positive comments about this year's report from some of our lifelong cooperators on the council. Praise indeed. So my job today is just to flesh out a wee bit the committee's approach and thinking. So what I'll do is give a little bit of context about how we've looked at pay against what we said last year. We'll look at what's still on the to-do list, and there's quite a lot still on the to-do list, and I'll call out the pay motion, which is up for vote later. Now, I've said this every year, but the focus on executive pay isn't going away anytime soon, and nor should it. But there have been some important developments during 2018 trying to address some of the concerns that have been raised, and that's led by the government. Now these rules are only really for companies with traded shares, the PLCs. But we've decided that it's the right thing for our co-op to voluntarily do this extra reporting where it makes sense. And importantly, we've started reporting a year early because we think the main value of this is in comparing movement over time. So in our report, we gave details of the pay ratio of our chief executive compared with various different groups of full-time employees, as well as still publishing our own pay ratio in the same way as we've done for the last 2 years. Now, many of you will know I'm not a big fan of pay ratios. I don't think they necessarily mean a great deal in isolation, and they don't give us the insight that they purport to. But net-net, we're absolutely committed to transparency, and over time, they will, I hope, give us some interesting and, more importantly, actionable data points. We'll see on that. Now, we all know that we're a very different business from many others with a different way of doing business, and that our members have different expectations. But we still need to recruit and keep the very best talents in order to compete and succeed in frankly, some of the most complex and competitive markets we've ever seen. We've still got to strike a balance to get a total reward structure that rewards high performance, but that reflects our principles and values. So on that, and first of all, and for the 4th year running, we have held executive salaries. That's no annual salary increases for the executive team. So the total salary cost of our executive is now lower than at any time in my tenure as REMCO chair. And that's as we move further away from some of those crisis packages we had to pay back in 2013-14, before my time. Also, this year in particular, we changed our senior leader bonus plans, both to simplify them and to make sure they help us to deliver on this stronger co-op, stronger communities strategy. And that new bonus plan has what we call a balanced scorecard approach. So it's not good enough just to deliver strong financial results. It has to be done in the right way, with the focus on more than just how much money we make. Now, you've heard from Ian and Steve how strong those 2018 financial results were, and that's even against a raised target to take account of the pro forma, i.e. the numbers that we hope to get in the nicer business, and those numbers were delivered. And importantly, they were delivered again alongside very good performances against our membership, our engagement, and our community targets. So it was no surprise that the new bonus plan paid out, and our senior leaders earned somewhere between 45% and 75% of their maximum opportunity, depending on their personal performance grades. And you remember from last year that each person's maximum varies depending on their role. It's also important to remember that with the new scheme, half of the bonus is paid this year, with the remaining half due to be paid in 2 years, provided they're still working for our co-op, so it works as a retention device for our people. We also reported this year on the outturn for the outstanding long-term incentive plan 2016 to 2018, and I'm pleased to say that good cash control, good cost control, and more importantly, 3 years of very strong sales, particularly in our food business, meant we were ahead of target on all the financials. Performance against the other measures was more mixed. Our reputation, which we call brand health, that continued to improve, and that's reflected in a very good performance outcome for this measure. Performance against and admittedly they were very stretching, targets we set for membership spend and colleague engagement wasn't as good. It was strong, but it wasn't up to the target. So if we add all of that up, we paid out just below 44% of the maximum achievable award for each of the 80 or so senior leaders that are included in that scheme. But overall, it was very well done by the top team. Now let's look at the wider co-op and the bulk of our colleagues. We've continued to pay above national living wage, and we've continued to apply our rates to all colleagues, which means, so unlike many other employers, we haven't reduced rates for younger colleagues or for apprentices. Yes, I think that deserves a round of applause. But just as importantly, we also still provide paid breaks. And again, that's unlike many of our competitors. The national living wage will carry on rising each year, and our aim is that we stay well ahead of that base. If we look at where we are now, we've increased our minimum rate up to $8.38 an hour from April the 1st, which is another nearly 5% rise. And for experienced CTMs, what that means is an increase to our hourly pay rates of nearly 25%, 24.5% over the last 4 years. 25% over the last 4 years. And this year, in total, we're investing another, well, it's 29 million to frontline colleague pay, and the total is about 50 million to total food colleague pay. And if you refer back to Ian, when we're reporting underlying profit before tax of plus or minus just less than 50 million, look at that in context. So we're really concentrating on raising those levels of colleague pay. And we want to carry on raising those levels of frontline pay because it's absolutely the right thing to do. But we have to understand how costly it is given how many colleagues we employ. And as you've seen, we're operating on extremely tight profit margins. So every 1.5 pence increase in our hourly rate at frontline costs over £1 million a year. And that's coming out of either profits, the 50, 43, whatever it was underlying, or from those either must-do legacy investments or the investments Joe's just been talking about in colleague safety. We're having to make those choices every day. Now, we'll improve our pay ratios, but we'll improve them by raising frontline colleague pay over time. Now, I've already said we published lowest to highest pay ratios last year, so we can track that progress over time, like for like. And this year, on salary alone, we've improved from 48 to 1 to 44 to 1. If we look, and you'll have seen this in the report, if we look at pay plus target bonus, then earnings were up slightly from 98 to 101, and that's purely because last year we increased our chief executive's maximum potential bonus by 25% last year, which means 12.5% increase in on-target earnings potential, which is what you agreed at last year's AGM. So we have made progress, but we're always looking to find ways to do more. And we always have to find that right balance between our offer to members and customers on the one hand and our offer to colleagues. And we also know it's not all about direct pay and that wider benefits are important too. We want every colleague to feel proud to work here and to be recognised for the success that they help us achieve and the part that they play in that. So we've worked hard on colleague recognition and training and support schemes like Neighbour. In April, we also published our second gender pay gap report. You'll remember, hopefully from last year, we have to report separately on the whole co-op and our insurance business. And you will have seen the results. We still have a 12% median gap in co-op and 12.1%, just plus or minus the same in insurance. And we have that gap even though over 80%, 8 out of 10 of our colleagues are on fixed rates of pay for the job that they do, regardless of gender. So, you know, in co-op, excluding insurance, we've seen a really modest improvement since we reported 2017, less so in insurance, but that's largely because our headcount has gone down by nearly 10%. And that's changed the median male and the median female comparators, which are used for the calculation. See, it's all very complex and it's all averages of averages, and like nearly all big companies, we have more men than women in our highest paid roles, and that skews the numbers. So in the co-op, even in the co-op, only 30% of our top quartile, the top 25% of jobs, are currently taken by women. And that's even though more than half of our executive team are women. We've got more than 50% of all our apprenticeships over the past 3 years going to women, and hopefully that strong pipeline of next generation women will continue to grow, because I've said this many, many times before, what we have is a gender role gap rather than a gender pay gap, and it's that that needs sorting. It's that all of us are focused on, but it will take time to see major shifts, because when you look at the averages, 80% of our people are on fixed pay. On to pay policy briefly. You're being asked to consider an additional motion this year to approve our executive pay policy for the next 3 years. Now, it's only 3 years since the pay policy in its entirety was last voted on by members in 2016. And since then, in 2017, our members agreed to authorise the committee to simplify the bonus schemes. And as I've said, last year, our members agreed to increase that part of our chief executive's pay which links to performance. So up to 200% of base pay was increased to up to 250% of base pay. And we proposed this change to keep Steve's package closer to the middle of the comparator marketplace without having to give a huge increase in his fixed pay. And the committee believed very strongly that it was much, much better to increase the part of pay potentially which links to performance. So if performance isn't good enough, no increase accrues, but depending on the level of results achieved, a payment of somewhere between 0 and 250% of salary can be made, but with half of that figure held over for 2 years. So with the exception of these two amendments, the 2016 pay policy hasn't changed, and you've already voted on both of those, so we'd really welcome your support by voting in favour of the motion today. It's not binding, but we do take the message from any vote very seriously, so it is important. So to wrap up, the last 4 years has seen the committee change the way that we reward particularly our executives. We've made very significant improvements, rebalancing fixed and variable pay. We've simplified bonuses, and we will continue to review those changes to make sure that they work as intended. But we believe we're in a good place now and set fair for the challenges ahead. To meet our stronger co-op and stronger communities ambition, we need to recruit and keep more than our fair share of the best and most talented leaders. And obviously, the better we do, the more other companies want to poach our best and brightest. So although our executives should never be the highest paid in the market, and you know, many of you have heard me say, I believe we want missionaries more than mercenaries, we must not abuse their commitment to cooperation. Can't even say it, teeth are out. We mustn't abuse that commitment to cooperation. And getting the right balance on executive pay is never easy. Not all members will agree with the choices we've made. But the one promise I make is that you have a very hard-working, very experienced committee focused only on getting the best return from our members' investment in talent. So on your behalf, I'd like to thank the committee, our two MNDs, Margaret and Gareth, our Sid the Sage, Sir Christopher. I'd also like to thank particularly the Council Remuneration Group, tirelessly led by Leslie Resnicek, for their help, their challenge, their support, because it's been a particularly busy year for all. So thank you all. I think that's all I wanted to say for now. I look forward to our Q&A session shortly. I'm around all day. Grab me if there's anything else you want to talk about one-to-one. For now, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Stevie. So now can we welcome our Council President, Mr. Nick Crofts.
Thank you, Alan. Now, before I start, there are many in the room that know that I quite like a selfie. I've had a few with members here this morning, and one of them said to me, "Do you dare to grab a selfie at the lectern on the stage?" To which my response was, "You bet. I have a very high embarrassment threshold, so we're going to get the picture, you're all going to smile, and then I'll tweet it." There we go. Good. Right, thank you for indulging me. And Alan, thank you for that very warm and generous introduction, as always. Now, cooperators, I am glad to have the opportunity to report on the work of the National Members' Council in the last year. The Council acts as the representatives of the owners of our cooperative business, you, our members, for the millions of individual members in every nook and cranny of the country, and for our independent society members, those co-ops that began our cooperative society all those years ago, because we are part of one co-op family. The ties that bind us have never been more important, ties of ownership and cooperation. Since the Council was established in 2015, we've had two primary responsibilities. Firstly, holding our board to account for the decisions that they make and for the way in which our co-op is governed. But for the Council, holding to account is more than simply asking the board to explain their actions. For the Council, it is an active responsibility, one in which we seek to wield influence on behalf of our members, by influencing the board and by so doing, influencing our business's activities. And secondly, Council is the guardian of our cooperative values and principles, making sure that cooperation remains at the beating heart of this society. The last year has been tremendously busy for Council, with a host of issues on the Council's agenda, but no issue has been more significant than the issue of rising retail crime and the safety of our colleagues. And as Joe said earlier, it isn't about profits, it's about people. Stock and property can be replaced, people cannot. So I was proud when the Council put this issue front and centre of its agenda. We had an in-depth debate with our board, sharing our knowledge about the ways our colleagues and communities are affected and exploring ways to make things better. As always, Council members showed that they are passionate, knowledgeable and care deeply about our colleagues. I'm proud that Council developed and promoted the Safer Colleagues, Safer Communities campaign. Council adding value to our co-op. But Council is about more than our values and principles and ethics. It's also about adding value to our businesses. In 2017, two of our Council members made the suggestion that we should get back to our roots as a wholesale business. Steve, you grasped the idea with both hands. And now we are celebrating the one-year anniversary of our deal with NISA. And I must pay tribute to the two Council members that made that proposal, Louise Walker and Frank Nelson. Louise is here, please stand. It's £2 million a week of own brand that we put through NISA now. It's a shame you're not on commission, Louise. That would be better than a round of applause, wouldn't it? And thank you, Steve, as well, for acknowledging the contribution that Council's made to launching Co-op Health. Council members adding value to our business. And of course, the member pioneer model, designed and refined by and with Council. I'm so proud of the work of our member pioneers. We now have 300 working hard to make life better for our communities. Council is eager to see the full 1,500 rolled out quickly. And Steve and Alan hear loud and clear that Council wants faster progress. Now, I'm proud of our co-op, and I'm proud of the work that we do, and I'm particularly proud that we've been nominated for the second year running as Leading Cooperative of the Year in the Co-ops UK Awards. Last year, the award was won by our friends at Mid-Counties Co-op. Congratulations to President Helen Wiseman for your win. This year, I hope our co-op will win the vote. There are lots of reasons why. Because we are leading the way to tackle the scourge of modern-day slavery. Because we've given back £60 million to members and £19 million to our communities. And because we're campaigning to make all of our communities safer, demanding change from the government and forging new cutting-edge partnerships. 3 great reasons to give our co-op your vote. But there is another, and it is the best reason. 6 years after our crisis, we are still here. We survived our near-death experience and have come back better and stronger, but more humble than before. The co-op has got its mojo back, and the council is proud of the role it has played in our renaissance. So if you haven't yet voted, please do vote for the co-op. You can vote here today at the council stand in the marketplace, and you can even vote right now on the smartphone, on your smartphone for the co-op AGM app. So please do get voting. Now, Council has always championed finding new and innovative ways to enable our members to be involved in the co-op they own, because traditional ways are not enough. A co-op with 4.6 million member owners must go beyond meetings and AGM voting. In 2016, we agreed to work in partnership to develop a new participation strategy. It's called Join In, and it's one of the most impressive things that the co-op is doing. Digital opportunities for our members to tell us what they think and to share what is important to them. And the results continue to impress. 11,000 members were involved in the nation's biggest survey about death and bereavement. Members sharing incredibly personal testimony that helped us to understand that death should not be a taboo subject. Members want us to learn from their experiences. Now we're working with members on the 3 areas they highlighted: bereavement support, celebration of life, and meeting the needs of a loved one. This work has touched everyone that has seen it, not least members of council. And working with Co-op Digital, 12,000 members joined in to trial our new digital coupons, giving targeted discount vouchers to members, genuine member input to create a new benefit to members. This is cooperation. And the future of food, 1,000 members working with our policy team to reduce our packaging waste, not endorsing a predetermined stance, but crowdsourcing ideas from members to find new solutions. The best 3 ideas were selected by members and are already in development. And the join-in worked so well, it's now a formal part of the Future of Food strategy. As we speak, our members are sharing ideas to tackle food waste. Our membership is a hugely valuable resource, wise, creative, innovative, and I could point to dozens more examples like this. But it's not just the right thing to do because we're a democracy to involve members, it's the right thing to do for our bottom line as well. Members were asked to help one of our wine suppliers. The sales of the wine were not as they should be. The supplier wanted members to help design a new label for the bottle. What happened? Sales increased by 40%. 40%! Turns out members know a thing or two about design. Join-in is good for our democracy and good for our profits. Members who join in spend 12% more in our food stores and they buy more of our own brand product. And Council has run their own join-in opportunities this year on colleague safety and on cooperative education. Council soliciting the views of members to improve our co-op. Already, 133,000 members have joined in. altogether more than 230,000 times. And we've calculated that our members have given over 4.5 years of their time to supporting their co-op through Join In since we launched. I'm tremendously proud of this initiative, and I'm tremendously proud of Council's involvement in its inception. This is cooperation, and cooperation writ large. The work is led by Mark Robinson-Field. Mark, are you in the room? He said he might not be. Bless him. We'll grab him afterwards. Anyway, we all owe him and his team a gigantic debt of thanks for all that they do to get members joining in. So please show your appreciation. And Steve, make a note, Mark's a coward. So if you haven't joined in yet, make this the year that you do. The last year has been a busy one for Council and its members. Congratulations, by the way, to all of those that have been elected or re-elected to Council, and of course commiserations to all of those unsuccessful candidates. Our democracy requires members willing to put themselves forward, and there is plenty for Council members to do. In our 175th year, we remember and honour those pioneers that began our co-op. They didn't simply start a cooperative society. The values that they enumerated brought forth a new movement that would go on to shape the world. And we today work to live those values. With our eyes firmly on the future, there is no better way to honour those pioneers, because despite our extraordinary heritage, the best days for our co-op lie in the future and not in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Normal tour de force. I just want to add to that. I think, you know, Join In is a really great thing, and the reason it's a great thing and we get so many members involved in it is that it's, first of all, it's very relevant. So people are talking about relevant things. There's a lot of engagement, and actually it's helping create stuff. And you know, that's what great movements have. And I think Join In is one of our big stepping stones to recreating this movement that we really want to do. So I'm absolutely with you. I think it's been phenomenal. And the test of it is just been how many people have been involved in it. And I think that's the critical thing. Now we'll move on to the Q&A session. Before we do, I just want to mention to you that last year we had two motions, one on plastic recycling and another one on responsible advertising. And there's a document you should all have which says "You said we did," because we're very conscious of the fact that, you know, if we say we're going to do something, we better tell everybody what we've done. So, you know, just be there. That's available. It was made available to members ahead of the meeting, and it's all on our websites too, as well as on the copies on the table. So now we'll move to the Q&A. We've got about an hour. In fact, we've got exactly an hour. So I'll keep us going. We've got our normal stewards in blue T-shirts, I think, floating around. If you can see in the back, they'll come towards you. They've got the paddle boards. And if you raise your hand, then we'll get a microphone. And it's really important that you have a microphone, because otherwise we can't hear you, so that'll work. We'll try and get through as many questions as we can. We never get through them all. I always get told, you go on too long, so I'll be tough on the time. But we're all here, and lots of the execs are here, and all of the board are here, and all the council are here, and Nick's here. So there's a great opportunity in the marketplace afterwards to cover anything. And even then, if you don't cover anything, then you just email us and we will respond, because I'm conscious that we do all that. So with that, why don't we start with 6 over in the corner there? How's that?
Hello, Vivian Woodell here from the Mid-Counties Cooperative, and also a member myself. My question's addressed to Stevie. You said we mustn't abuse people's commitment to cooperation. I'm not sure that everyone in this room would think that not paying 250% of salary as a bonus opportunity would be an abuse of people's commitment to cooperation. Stevie, you said that this was intended to align the scheme more closely with those of comparators. I want to put it to you that the problem is that the comparators and what they're doing is flawed. In a country with greater inequality of wealth and income than most advanced economies, That's an issue we need to take seriously and to think about addressing. So I would like to ask you to tell us how you intend to go further than tweaking a problem and to become part of the solution. We've always been innovative in the co-op movement. Personally, I believe that if you pay very high salaries, you will attract people in the end whose main interest is in very high salaries. If you attract people because, as you said, who are, as you described, missionaries, you will get people who are more aligned with our values. Now, I mean, I think we should acknowledge Alan Layton is giving up his entire fee to the foundation. That is an indication that it is not always money that attracts the best people to work for an organisation which is purpose-driven. So I'd like to hear you tell us how you intend to become part of the solution rather than, if you like, a weak follower and part of the problem.
Okay, all right, Vivian. That's a cracker to start with. I'm going to do two others, and the reason I'm going to do two others is then people can be thinking about the answers to the other two while we're thinking about it. So we'll do 2 and 1. How's that? If you can keep the questions short, that would really help. That could do.
Hello. Oh.
Where are you? Oh yeah, good. Thank you.
This seems a trivial question after that, but in your highlights you show that 19 million was given back to the communities. But in the annual report, the key performance indicators for members and communities show 12 million given back to the community.
Okay, we'll pick that up as well. Ian will pick that up. And sorry, 1, and then we'll do, if you can think about the order. Okay, 1.
Yeah, Sean Fensom, member pioneer for Chiltern here in Manchester. It's brilliant after 175 years we're continuing to put stronger communities at the core of what we're doing, and congratulations on the 50 million investment in social housing. Funeral care in Chiltern has put its hub up for sale. We know about this, we only know about this because property agent Savills is advertising it. It's a big old cinema with an even bigger plot. And Savills says, it's a prime development opportunity in the heart of Chiltern. And our clients, that's the co-op, have gathered positive pre-application feedback for the site, supporting redevelopment for a predominantly residential scheme. Anybody familiar with Chiltern will know exactly what that means. So aside from the fact that it would have been nice to have been able to give some pre-application feedback from the community on this idea, shouldn't we be using cases like this as a splendid opportunity for the co-op to lead the way in creating shared community spaces and investment in social housing?
Okay.
Can we have a commitment that in its stewardship of prime development land assets, the management will walk the walk as well as talk the talk?
Okay. Good. Right. Do you want to go Stevie, Ian? Steve, do you want to pick the call to one up, or do you want to get... Okay, anyway, we'll think about it. Stevie, you go first.
Thank you, Vivian, for the primary question of society, really, on inequality of wealth. I'm not sure I particularly liked that I'm a weak follower and part of the problem, because I'd like to think that I've spent 4 years trying to be part of the solution. We have a 10 billion turnover, complicated business to be run. And it's 5-6 years since we nearly lost it. In tough times, we need the best talent. Nobody has an absolute value. So, sparing Steve's blushes, we have one of the best leaders in the industry, bar none. If he went to the States, he would earn 10 times what we currently pay him. If he was running... If he was running, I'm the chairman of Mind, as many of you know. If he was running a major not-for-profit, he would earn 1/10 of what he's currently earning. and that's the same person with the same skill sets working as hard, there is this huge discrepancy in what that earning capability is. And without having a big lecture on the fact that nobody has an absolute value, you know, I think we have to recognise that we need the very, very best talent to, and we're not out of the woods yet, make sure that our co-op is here for the next 175 years. My objective has been to raise the level of our lowest paid colleagues, and again, you saying I'm part of the problem, I think 25% increase in front of house colleague pay over the period of this remuneration committee is something of which I am very proud. I think that the comparator group for everything is something that we have worked hard with Council on to make sure that we're not just looking at PLCs, we're not just looking at direct comparisons, and we're not just looking at pay in isolation of the broader context of reward. It's a huge societal problem. It's one that I lecture about outside of the co-op. You know, I'm a member of the High Pay Commission, etc., etc. So it's a topic close to my heart. I'm very happy to spend some time afterwards, but I promise you it's right front and centre of balancing having the best people with the best brains to solve the issues that we have to solve, and looking after the other issues that we have to solve in the co-op, like safety, like legacy investment, like investment in IT, etc., etc. All that we do on the board is about making choices of where we spend or where we invest the funds that we raise.
Okay, thank you, Stevie. Ian, do you want to take the
1% question? First of all, if you know it was confusing, apologise for that. We do spend a lot of time trying to make sure that the annual report is as easily readable as we possibly can. In terms of the numbers, in effect, the 60 million is the 5%, and what we say is we've actually then supported local causes by 19 million. That 19 million, 12 million comes from the 1%, i.e. the 60 and the 1% of that being what we're putting from the 1% of members' money, and then 7 is the carrier bag sales. So it's 60, 19 to local causes, 12 from 1%, 7 from carrier bag sales.
Okay. Steve, can you pick the other one up?
Yeah, on Chiltern, one of the things I'm quite proud about is that we as a team are spending a lot more time listening to what you on the ground are telling us is actually going on. And I have to tell you that I wasn't aware that was precisely going on in the Chiltern area. What it does, though, I think, is play into this place where we do have a lot of energy, and you'll hear it talked about a lot this afternoon about creating spaces to connect communities. And I think we need to go away and look at the specific issue that you raised this morning, and if there is a better way that we can develop this area that plays to our community aspirations, then we should think long and hard about it. What I've learned in my time here is that there are some real nuggets that you stand up and call out, which have actually been real successes during the journey of the last 3 years. So I encourage you still to keep doing it. Thank you, Sean, for raising it, and we'll make sure that we go back and look at that specific issue.
Okay, good, thank you. We'll go 365.
Hi, I'm Kate Eldridge. I have a question on behalf of Share Action, which is a responsible investment charity. So Co-op has acknowledged our responsibility for helping customers lead healthy lives through products and campaigns. I can see you've removed millions of teaspoons of sugar from your products. However, there appear to be lots of promotions on unhealthy products like crisps, fizzy drinks and cakes, and less on fruit and vegetables. In the context of soaring overweight and obesity rates affecting 1/3 of UK children, we need bold action to tackle unhealthy eating habits. I can see that you're reviewing the diet and health strategy. Please can you let me know when you're planning to publish the strategy and what actions it will include in relation to price and promotions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Just hold that for a minute. Good one. 365. 6.
Yeah, Ian Hewitt from Nottingham. The fact that we've got Brexit and we've got a clown in the United States who is also probably a crook and threatening to blow the world up says that we've got a problem generally with democratic process. Now, there's been very strong evidence put forward that the rise in digital media and the abuse of digital media is a root cause. So Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon have basically been crooked, they've been misleading, and they've abused the societies in which they operate. So they've extracted billions and billions and paid little back. There's a really good book by a woman called Shoshana Zuboff that's worth reading. She's a professor of sociology at Harvard University, and it's authoritative and it's extensive. Now, what we need vitally in a cooperative organisation, which I think is struggling with its democratic process, is an open and informed debate on what democracy means, given that we've got these crooks running the digital infrastructure. We shouldn't simply, I think, be joining in with the fastest, most crooked game in town by engaging without proper recourse to democratic process. And I'd like to know where the governance, the democratic governance is, and where the debates have been around this issue. Now, be aware that Shoshana Zuboff makes absolutely clear that health is the big target globally for these crooks that have been destroying our societies. And we've got to, if we're going to get involved in that, then I would hope that we embody something of the spirit of the Rochdale pioneers and the people that fought to establish cooperation as an ethical alternative to a crooked surveillance capitalism.
Okay. 5. 5.
Good afternoon, cooperators. Mike Hedgethorne from Sussex. It's 3 years ago today that our new co-op signage and brand was launched. And I have to say, I think most of us love it. But one thing has happened since that time. Our packaging, our co-op label goods, the writing, there's a great big co-op sign on them, but you can't see the product name. We don't need to know the ingredients in big writing, but can we know it's rice pudding, tiramisu latte, or whatever?
Okay.
Go and have a look next time in the shop at what I mean.
Okay, brilliant.
On a similar thing, and this is more important, shelf edge labels. The writing cannot get any smaller than it is now, including the price. Go and have a look in Morrison's, Tesco's, J. Sainsbury's, or Redder. Their shelf edge labels have product and price in big writing. Can we please have it in our shops too? Thank you.
Okay. Good. All right. So Steve, you want to tackle the?
Yeah, I'll
piece. I'll try the other two.
I'll take that last one, then I'll also take the one from Kate if you want on care, action, and health.
Yeah.
I think let us take away the first point around we've reduced the font size of the actual product. Hear that loud and clear, and that we wouldn't want that to be the case. I know on shelf edge labels we will have actually increased the size over the last 3 or 4 years by probably 25%, but it isn't as big as elsewhere. And what we have to do is to start to match that, and that will need some IT investment, which I know the team's been looking at for a while. So I think leave that with us. Both of those are well-made points. Kate, your point around health is extremely important for us. We've got a health strategy that the team are just in the process of starting to work through. We've made great progress around removing nearly 600 million teaspoons of sugar over the last 4 or 5 years. There's a lot more that we can do in this space. When I was at Leeds University store 3 days ago, we had huge ranges of healthy products from Sumaron grocery right the way through our fresh ranges because our students were really calling for it. We do sell quite a lot of booze, we do sell quite a lot of sweets, and we do sell quite a lot of tobacco. And this then comes back to choice and how we can nudge people to have a bit more consciousness about what they eat and what they consume. If we run too fast, we'll switch a lot of people off who will go elsewhere. But the opportunity is to try and make them aware more and more that if you have a healthy diet, then you'll have a healthier, hopefully a longer life. I know that the energy that the food development team is putting into this space is significant, and I'm confident that you'll see more healthy ranges coming through. But what we just need to be really careful is that we don't turn off millions of members in this room who probably do like a drink, as I would, or smoke, or like a bar of chocolate, as I do, because I've got a really sweet tooth. So we've got to get the balance right, but it's very much within the centre part of Joe and the team's plan going forwards.
Okay. Then I'll try the world domination point. I sort of think I know what you're saying, but I mean, the most important thing is what we do, not what anybody else does. You know, it's easy to sit in judgment on others. Sometimes it's more difficult to sit in judgment on yourself. And, you know, we are a democratic organisation. Every single person is a member, and we're one member, one vote. And, you know, that membership is growing. We are, as Steve said, trying to create the co-op to be a movement for good. And we use those words specifically, a movement for good, because there is a lot of bad. But, you know, sometimes... Sorry? No, okay, well, we're not Facebook, and we're not Amazon, and we're not Trump, and we're not anybody else. We're the co-op, okay? That's what we do. I don't think you need to say any more. We'll do 1 to 6, okay?
Good morning, Mike.
Oh, no. No, go on. I spoke to you this morning.
Well, I don't think I need to tell you what my name is.
No.
You know it. And I would like to start off this morning by saying at least I had some action after I spoke last year at the conference.
Can you say that again?
But I haven't seen Alan doing a visit in the valleys.
I sense the lovely Joe is much better than me and can do much more activity.
Earlier on, you would find his way to the valley sometime. But no, I would like, being seriously now, I spoke here last year, and all of it I said was very genuine because I'm not one to fabricate anything that's happening. And we did have a visit from Joe Whitfield following my talk here. And I would like to thank Jo for the work that she did when she came down. She did give us a good boost in the store. Unfortunately, not everything went the way that I would like to see it, but that's another story. We are moving on, and we're hoping we will have a refit this year, and we will have a celebration, so that we may even throw a big party, not at the COP expense, but with COP products.
So you're going to hear from us now. Joe's just given me the true.
Yes, but...
Refit this year?
If I can just...
Sorry? October is when your refit takes place. How about that for action?
But I will keep with that, Joe. And can I just say this, that I know the people, the workers in this store in Treorchy, will be watching this on YouTube, because when I got back from the meeting last year, I didn't have to tell them what had happened here. They'd been listening to it and before I got home. So I've had my leg pulled before I came here today, this week today. But there are a number of concerns I've got here. because when you were talking, Stevie, when you were talking all the time about pays, executive pay, front line and all that. What I am concerned are the ones on the shop floor. And again, I'll reiterate what I said last year. If they get an increase in their wages, it's following all the time with cutbacks in hours in the store. Yeah. And if you look at the number of hours that used to be in our stores, it's down now to less than 0.5%, half of the numbers we used to have. In fact, I think it's more like 33% of what we used to be having in the stores. I know modern technology can do a lot, but there's a lot of things that cannot replace the human touch. So what I am concerned about, the workers on the shop floor should be having a better deal than what they're having at the better at the time.
Okay, we'll cover that. It's a really important point. So what did I go? 1, 2, 5. What did I say? 1, 2. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Juliette Phillips. I am a co-op member and work for the Environmental Investigation Agency, who last year worked with Greenpeace on a survey of the plastic footprint of the UK's leading supermarkets. The survey identified Co-op as a leader on recyclability, and we welcome the progress made in this area. However, the UK's recycling rate, which is only around 1/3 of consumer plastic packaging, depends on shipping waste overseas without oversight of how much is ultimately recycled, with concerning reports about toxic pollution and health threats affecting communities left to deal with our waste. I appreciate that Co-op has a smaller footprint compared to supermarkets like Tesco and Sainsbury's, but this footprint is by no means insignificant. Would Co-op commit to increase its range of loose, unpackaged products and give customers more choice to bring in reusable and refillable packaging alternatives? Thank you.
Okay, good one. And then did I say 6, I think, Nye, at the back?
Hi. My name is Jonathan Tilley. I live in Chorlton. My question is, when will the members' mobile app be released? There's massive reasons for doing it. For example, voting, we get 1% less than 1% of people voting. It will allow us to present offers to our customers. 80% of our customers are mobile first. And lastly, if you talk to millennials, they say apps. We don't use mobile web, we don't use mobile web, it's all apps. Can we have a mobile app web members, please?
Okay. Steve, do you want to pick the can you pick the packaging point up, Steve? In terms of the environmental question. Yeah. Yeah. Nick, can you do the app or?
I'll have a go. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And I'll pick up the colleague pay one. So, do you want to start, Steve?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pleased that you recognise the huge amount of effort that we are doing now in areas that we really can influence. I think as we get better and better in our own backyard, our thinking quite rightly, and you prompt us, is to then look beyond the footprint that we would seek to change first. And, you know, we were only talking about this subject at the board yesterday through our suppliers and how our suppliers have relationships with their suppliers and how we need to kind of help in that space. So I think there would be an appetite to go and look and understand and see what influence we could bring, recognising that our footprint is considerably smaller than others. But it's something that has just jolted me to have a think about it. So let us take that away if that's okay.
Nick, do you want to?
Yes, thanks, Chair. And great question, Jonathan. It's absolutely the space that we would want to be in. And you won't be surprised to hear that it's been a long-standing call from Council to say that we should be looking at this. There may be an announcement later on today, you'll be pleased to hear, about us taking a step in this direction. But how much better it would be if we could run our join-in activity through an app that was directly in everybody's phone, how much better it would be if you could vote in the elections and at the motions, how much better it would be if we could run targeted promotional activity through a phone app to get our members spending more in store. It's a complete no-brainer, isn't it? It's difficult to do well, and there need to be a series of iterations to get all of the good stuff built into such an app. We've got a brilliant digital team that work for the society that have been looking at this, so watch this space, I would say.
Okay. Let me try and address the colleague pay one and sort of pay generally, because it's always clearly the most sensitive subject. You know, the whole objective, I think Stevie talked about, is that we're trying to create a pay regime that's, you know, fitness for purpose for a cooperative. And that started with this work that Stevie's been done. It's not easy to make all those changes to executive pay and contracts and all those other bits, because we're in a competitive environment. I think there are two strike points for me. You know, obviously, you know, I clearly support that. You know, if you take Steve as the example, that there is not a better CEO that we could have for this organisation, and I believe that strongly. And actually, if you look at how he's paid and his bonuses, it's smack bang in the middle of what the range of things that you would look at to be able to do. And I think it's also worth you know, thinking through. You know, when we came, I remember 4 or 5 years ago, and we did the first REM report. You know, the pay that we were paying people was astronomical, and actually we were paying at the time for underperformance and significant underperformance, and then paying for failure off the back of that. You know, we don't do that anymore. The whole thing is based on paying for performance, and that's you know, that's very much how it should be. And it's also worth remembering that Steve's pay is significantly less than Richard Pennycook's was when he was the chief executive. So, you know, I know everybody thinks we could go further, but I think it's just worth thinking through actually what has happened over that period of time. Colleague pay is equally important. You know, we started from not a great position. We're not going to get everywhere we want to get to overnight, because it's, you know, it's an affordability thing. All the time you're balancing up all the things that we're trying to do. But on colleague pay, we are committed to keep moving it forward, and to a degree have shown that commitment. We talked today. Colleague pay has gone up 25% in the last 4 years. And we're committing a large slug of the profitability of food next year, with another 30–40 million going into colleague pay. Now, is that enough? No. But can we afford to do any more today? Not yet. Will we try over time to be absolutely increasingly? Absolutely, because that's what we're committed to do. But it is, you know, we were thinking about it only yesterday. You know, we're still, you know, we've come a long way, and we have really come a really long way. But, you know, a third of our stores have not been touched. You know, we talk about the branding, which has been fantastic, by the way, and our awareness and take, but still a third of our stores not been touched for 10 years. So we've got massive legacy systems in a big slug of our store base. We've still got massive systems investment that we're going through. The whole of the funeral business, which is, you know, we haven't talked about, that is being transformed. What was a very conservative business had massive change, massive digitalisation, massive omni-channel, different product changes, people's approach to how they want to do it. So there's all this change going on, and all we're trying to do all the time is balance all of those things up. And when you're trying to balance things up, it means that you have to get some degree of balance. So, you know, do I feel good about colleague pay? No. But we're doing what we can do, and over time we'll do more. And the key to it all is to make our commercial businesses stronger, because that means we can generate the money to do those things and do all the other things that we do in the community and everything else. And that's what we do. That's what the Co-op does. So, you know, that's where it is. You know, I think anybody's happy with anything, and that's great, because that means we're agitating for more. But I think we're making progress, and I think we're in the right direction, and there is that commitment there to try and improve things for everybody who's part of what we do, because all our colleagues are members too, remember that. Okay, so I think, Adam, we haven't had any digital, so we'll have a digital if we can, and then we'll do a 4 and a 2, I think, if that's fine. We'll do 6-4-2. How's that? Adam, what's the online question?
Yeah, we've just a big shout out to over 100 people who have chosen to join us online. In the live chat, we've had members praise our work on tackling knife crime, our work in academies, and on climate change. But of course, that's generated some questions. So first of all, on Co-op health, and particularly the prescription service, what safeguards will be in place to protect our members' data, particularly medical data, which is really sensitive. That's from Jay on YouTube. And Hazel on YouTube has also expressed some concern around our policy on single-use plastics, which feels it's too slow, and many members and customers feel that 4 years is too long. So what can we do to speed up a bit? Thank you.
Okay. Steve, do you want to pick those two up? Well, wait a minute, I'll just get a couple of other... And so where were the other... What did I say? I've lost where I said now. 6, 4, yeah? And 2. You got the mics? We'll go with 2 first, then 4. Whoever's got the mic.
Thanks. My name's Colin Baines. I proposed last year's independent motion on responsible advertising. I'm sure you'll agree that the Stop Funding Hate campaign and the hundreds of members who have engaged the group, including those that co-filed last year's motion, have done so in a very positive, constructive and patient manner. It's unfortunate that I must report to the AGM that the terms of the motion have not been met. However, I am pleased to say that our positive and constructive engagement is now being reciprocated, and a good meeting was held earlier in the week where information was shared on a confidential basis around relevant activity in this space. The reason the motion hasn't been adhered to is the reluctance to publicly report this engagement in the manner that was requested by the motion. So a couple of questions, if I may. Does the board acknowledge that the group has a policy to challenge those views expressed in print, which we and many of our members believe are incompatible with our values, and to use our contacts with publishers at every level to make the case for change? And can it advise why this was omitted from the "You Said, We Did" report, having been specifically referenced in the motion? That's not to say that this report, "You Said, We Did," doesn't contain good stuff. It's just that it doesn't disclose in the way that the motion asked it to. Secondly, if the board is reluctant to publicly publish this commitment and how it's meeting this commitment, will it consider signing up to the Conscious Advertising Network as an alternative way of publicly making a statement of commitment and leadership to responsible advertising? I appreciate the recent engagement on offer of 6 monthly meetings to discuss progress and look forward to a timely decision on joining the Conscious Advertising Network, which we view as having a key role in establishing best practice on this vital corporate social responsibility issue, and on which I'm sure the group will be able to add a great deal of value, having pioneered and been ahead of the curve of a lot of our competitors on the issue of responsible advertising. Leading the way on how business responds to the great societal challenges of the day is, of course, the co-op way. Thank you.
Okay, we'll pick that up. And 4, and then...
Hello, hiya. I'm Monica. I'm a member pioneer from Staffordshire, and I work as a teacher and a therapist. I'm not going to talk for long because I don't want the camera on me that much. Okay, so my question is basically, for the last about year, I've been working on a concept of getting the wellness index into prisons. I think it's a really good community tool. I work as a therapist in a prison in Stafford, and I've been told that it would be really useful if some of the questions could be tweaked and we could use that within the prisons. So I've been asking for the last year, so I thought I'd be cheeky and just ask now if I can get a name. That would be really great to be able to do that, please.
The answer to your question is yes. In one of my other charities, which is the Canal River Trust, which is all the British Waterways, we do tons of stuff with prisons on exactly this thing, on wellness and health and all the bits and pieces. So Matt here, you see Matt, he's just on the front. If you come with Matt, we'll fix that for you. How's that?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Good. So you want to pick these other 2 questions up, Steve? And then we'll...
some of them are a bit quicker than others.
Yeah, be as quick as you can.
On the data point on pharmacy, it's a totally secure platform, so you can be absolutely reassured that people's data is protected and not shared. On the recyclability challenge that we're not going fast enough, by 2020, next year, 79 to 80% of our packaging will be recycled. And that's exactly in line with what we said we would be at 2 years ago. That just needs that last long tail of 20% to try and see if we can go faster than, I think, 2024, which was the original date. If we can, we will. I know Ian Ferguson and Mike Fletcher's team are looking at this all of the time, so it's a helpful prompt. Thank you. Colin, on this really important subject, and it's felt a little bit like a yo-yo these last few years on this. There's some things in there that I agree with what you're saying, and asking some things which I probably am in a slightly different place. I do think we've done what we said, which is published the progress which is in the documentations on your tables today. I think that's really important work that we've been able to do. But I equally recognise that we should keep the conversation going, because that's actually, I think, got us to a really good place today. And as far as the Conscious Advertising Network, I know you've spoken to some of my colleagues about that this week. We should keep an open mind to that. We should understand it a bit more than we probably do today. And so I'm saying that we should spend some time deciding on what we want to do. Our approach, the approach that I've encouraged the business to take over the last year, has been to try and influence the editorship of some of these large titles rather than doing the really easy thing, which is to walk away and stop advertising. I spent a whole day in the Sun recently. In fact, I edited their business page for them. And as a consequence, they ran a really positive campaign around modern slavery for us. In fact, they told us it was the best campaign that they had run. I've noticed in the last many months with the Daily Mail that they want a conversation about all the social things that we in the room are interested in and want to solve, and they don't want to talk about the things that we have a real issue with. And I think I'm right in saying that the level of conversations in their papers around migrants and Muslims is most definitely dropping. I think that's been recognised, not just by me, but many in this room. And then the other difficult thing is, whether we like it or not, there's over 1 million of our members that buy these newspapers, and therefore what I didn't want to do was just switch off their ability to come to our shops and get what they needed. So I think the approach that we've taken, that we are taking, is now really starting to show that it can affect the editorship of those titles. But I equally agree we need to keep the dialogue open with you, because you've been a really good prompt for this, and see what more we can do going forwards.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So let's do 1 and 3. And where's Colin? Colin Hall's got a... Where's Colin? Chris. Where's Chris? 5. Okay, well, Chris, you go with yours, please, if you would. And then we'll do 5, 1, 2. Yeah?
Thank you. Chris Hall from Wrexham. This is a question, Chair, about the sale of parts of our business over the past 3 years, namely our funeral care crematoria to Dignity, 298 food stores to McColl's, the sale of our stake in the Twin Rivers Wind Farm to NTR, the sale of the CIS Tower to Castlebrook, the sale of our stake in the travel joint venture with Thomas Cook, the sale of our stake in the joint venture with Hermes on the Noma development, the disposal of our remaining 1% shareholding in the bank, and finally, this year, the sale of the CIS insurance business to Marcus Study, subject to regulatory approval, which, when they're totaled together, amounts to over £500 million in sale proceeds since the rescue of our co-op was completed in 2016. Leading to my question, as an ordinary member, hearing of so many businesses being sold in the last 3 years, it's a real worry to me that our co-op is slowly being demutualised. Can you please explain what the board's strategy is behind these disposals, and assure me that our co-op is not being demutualised by stealth?
Well, let me answer the last one first. There is not a cat's chance in hell ever that this co-op would ever be demutualised. Ever, ever, ever. Okay? Apart from the fact that none of us would ever want to do it, there are rules that it can't be done. So, you know, anybody who's got that thought, why would we ever give up the biggest difference we have to everybody else? It's completely nonsensical. So that would never happen. It's our biggest strength, it's our biggest asset, it's the thing we're unique the most, and all the stuff we talked about today. So if anybody's got any thought of that, you could not be more than 27 million miles away from what actually would ever happen. The second thing is that each one of these is slightly different. I think, you know, you right. I mean, first of all, let's on insurance, we have to make sure we haven't got that money yet, so that's got to be worked away through. You talked about travel. You know, clearly the Thomas Cook piece was part of how we solved our particular problem at that time. Not to be quoted, how do I feel about not being in that business today? Pretty good, thank you very much. I mean, actually, I'm glad we're not in that business. Look what's happened to their business. So we're not really in the property development thing, which is where the Hermes Noma transaction was, but we've got our money out off the back of it. It's a bit the same with the tower. And the 1% stake in the bank, frankly, why would we, you know, we don't have anything to do with the bank. You know, that piece, you know, that's history, that's gone. That's not us anymore. You know, we're a co-op, they're a bank. So all of those things. So our strategy is very straightforward. We've got our core businesses, which we love and we'll continue to invest in, and all of our investment goes into those businesses. We will be the #1 player in convenience. We are the #1 player in funeral, and our intention is to grow those positions. And to grow those positions, but in the way in which we've talked about here, in a completely different way to other people do it. We will re-enter. I mean, you didn't mention the pharmacies that went before. You know, those pharmacies were sold at a top price at that time when we needed the cash. Would I want to be in bricks and mortar pharmacy businesses today? No, thank you very much. They're all struggling. And it enables us to come back into these markets in today's world, which you go down a digital approach and you use the membership and the customers that you've got today. And so each one of these is looked at in isolation, is looked at as part of a broader picture about what is it are we trying to do, where is our focus going to be, and if they do not fit, and if they do not actually enhance anything that we can do for members, then we're better to be out of them, because you've seen the list of things that we've got to do. Our issue is it's not that we don't have thousands of opportunities, we do. We've just got to stay very focused, and we've got to deliver on the things that really make a difference to us. So that's why we do what we do, and I tell you, there's, you know, no way this will ever be demutualised, because it's the biggest strength we've got. You know, it's what we do. Go back to the same thing. Okay? Let's do 1, 2, and then I think we'll probably, yeah, we can do 1, 2, 5. How's that? Oh no, we go over there. 1, 2, 3. How's that? Can we go? Either 2 or 1, somebody? Yeah? Go.
Hi, I'm Nigel Sweet. I'm up from the West Sussex South Coast. Lancing-on-Sea we're called now, you've probably heard of us. I just wanted to welcome the initiative, or the widened initiative, to get co-ops into festivals. I think it's a really good thing. It engages with younger people, although older people go as well. I enjoyed quite a lot of festivals myself in the early 70s, being a bit of an old hippie, a bit like you, Alan, I expect.
Oh, not so much of the whole, still a hippie.
Great. But I think that I'd like to add or suggest 3 extra festivals that would be really good, very much in tune with our values and principles. And I think lots of people go there, not just young people, but all sorts of people. The first one is the Tolpuddle Martyrs Festival down in Dorset. Really excellent. If anyone's not been yet, please do go. It's a lovely family-friendly festival that would be very much benefited by the co-op's presence. And obviously it celebrates key parts of our values and principles with the founding of the trade union movement in the world. The other one I'd like to suggest is the Burston School Festival over in East Anglia. Longest strike in history, very much in tune with our values and principles, and of course the Friday strikes by school children these days, in line with that, as it was a strike of school children, with the climate change issue being at the front of thinking. And the final one is the Durham Gala. Again, very much in terms of our values and principles up in the northeast. So can we look seriously at all three of those, because I think they would really add to our portfolio of festivals.
We will do. I don't tell everybody this, so don't tell anybody, is I actually Morris dance at the Durham Gala. How's that? And if you ask me to do it, I won't, but never gone. So, 3 and 1, whoever's 1 or 3, who's ready? 1?
Hi there, good afternoon. Ryan Day from Lincolnshire Humberside area. So the co-op business focus massively on fair trade, and we're proud as a business, and I'm sure everyone is, on the fair trade products we deliver and the fair trade people it affects back from where the bananas, the cocoa beans are coming from. My question is, what is the business going to do in regards to the contractors they use in Britain, such as your cleaning companies, your possibly delivery, security? You know, is there a policy in place to make sure that they are delivering a fair deal to the employees? I'm not going to name any businesses, but there was a previous contractor within the business which had an absolutely atrocious reputation with the way it treats employees. I did raise my concerns to the CEO, Steve, which got passed on, and now they're not operating. I don't know if that's any influence, but I think when you bring in a new company or contractor to the business, you know, you do need to be vetting them a bit stricter, because we're going to look stupid if something backfires, if a company's not paid its staff correctly or not dealt with the pensions pot properly, you know, and you know, these people are the core to our business.
Yeah. Okay. 3.
Jane Avery, ISM Council Member representing Central England Co-op. I'd like to make a comment first. We've been talking about plastic waste. I wonder whether we could just make a decision at the next AGM that all the single-use plastic bottles on the tables are simply replaced with a jug of water. Now to my question. Nick Cross mentioned the 300 pioneers, and it's good to see the pioneers today in their high-vis gilet gris, and to hear pioneers telling their stories. I understand that the aim is to recruit 1,500, so I wondered if you could explain to the meeting how the recruitment is going and when you hope to have all pioneer posts filled. Thank you.
Okay, that's very good. So, Steve, you might pick the member pioneers up. Just on the supplier point, I mean, it's very current. We had a conversation at the board meeting yesterday about one of the things that we've got to do as a co-op, which others don't do, is not just look at the relationship that we have with our own suppliers, but also to move that now to the relationship of the supplier of our suppliers. And so your point is very valid. I think it's a very co-op thing to do, and it was a discussion at the board only yesterday. So you'll see some follow-up on that. Do you want to take the member pioneers point?
Yeah, I just want to take the water point, which I completely understand, but we've got a balance here between every bottle of water that we sell, 3 pence goes to water poverty and a good cause. And what the team's tried to do over the last year is say that half of the plastic is now from recycled plastic to enable us to reduce thousands of tons of plastic, but to keep on making sure that we're selling as much water as we possibly can. And so, again, this, I think, is just a great example of how we're trying to balance doing good but also being really responsible. So I hear the claim about change the plastic bottles, but it's not quite as simple as that, because at the moment we do want people to buy our water in this type of packaging. On the member pioneer point, there was an amazing day yesterday where 300 new member pioneers got celebrated and an unbelievable buzz in the room. And we are committing to the plan that said that we will have 1,500 member pioneers by the end of 2020. What we have done to enable that is to change the way we are bringing those individuals in, making sure that they're going to have absolutely a first-class induction, and they are clear on the areas that we want them to get behind. And later on, you'll hear Rebecca talk to you about that. That certainty has caused us to be a little bit slower than where we would want to be, but we are absolutely still committed to the 1,500, and we will be there by the end of next year.
Good, thank you, Steve. So we're going to do 2 more questions, and then I think we'll go 1 and 2 because we've not been that side. So who wants to go first? Go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go first. Diana Lewis. I'm a customer-facing colleague in Wales. As the car industry moves forward to electric cars, and that is a growing, fast industry, I have actually been approached by a customer asking for electric charge points to be put in and to be put in all our car parks. And I just think, is the business looking at that? Are they going into our petrol stations?
So I've got Joe nodding ahead to say that's one of the things that we look at. Clearly, we won't put it in all the, but there are locations where, that's very good. So that's a very good suggestion. So if we'll pick that up, but it's something that's very much on our mind. Okay, 2.
Thank you. Colin Bastin from West London. In fact, from also one of the organisations I'm involved in is the West London Trade Union Club, which is a cooperative. And we will not be showing the Eurovision Song Contest, as we normally do every year, tonight, because of Palestine and the incursions by Israel into Palestine. And so thank you for the applause. One thing I will be doing is serving behind the bar in the Trade Union Club on the 23rd of May, where I hope everybody will be voting Labour before they come into the Trade Union Club. Thank you. And particularly on the member benefits that Nick Crofts was talking about earlier. And I was proud to have a little dance with Nick Crofts on the march recently when the band walked through. His embarrassment threshold went even higher. But to Nick, I'd like to ask him, thank you very much for talking about member benefits and what we're doing for members. If you would please remind us of how many members we have as a co-op movement in the UK. Secondly, by how many that has increased over the past year. Thank you very much.
Nick, do you want to do that? We've got the numbers for you.
Well, we've got 4.6 million members currently that are active trading. It has gone up by, I think, is it 600,000 or 800,000?
Yeah.
600,000, so from 4 million to 4.6 million.
And if you go back to 2016, when we relaunched the brand, it's up 2.5 million.
Yeah. So basically, in the period of the last 3 years, we've doubled the number of members. More importantly, or as importantly, is I think we set a target of 35% participation by members, and we're at that number. So I think the other good thing in this, Steve showed me some numbers the other day, is that the preponderance of younger members has increased significantly over that period of time too, which is the relevance point. So all round good stuff. Okay, well, unfortunately we won't have any more time for these questions, but make sure that you pick one of us up afterwards or email us and we will pick that up because we need to move to the motions. On 2 of the motions, which are the council motions, if it would be possible, I'd like Barbara and Sue just to get up and say their piece about those 2 now, if possible. Where's Barbara and Sue? I can't see. Anybody?
Here.
Okay.
Hello.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Good afternoon, cooperators. I'd like to refer you to your booklet here, Motion 10, from the Council, increasing our commitment to fair trade. And I'm actually not going to explain the motion, so I hope that you've all read it or have a chance to read it now. As a Co-op National Council member from the Scottish constituency, I'm honoured on behalf of the whole of Council to move a motion to the members calling for our Co-op's already noteworthy commitment to fair trade to be further extended. As a council, we've been very proud to co-own and indeed push for the Co-op campaigns you've heard about this morning on modern slavery, tackling loneliness, and of course, safer colleagues, safer communities. And I have to say, I've never been moved at an AGM as I was this morning when I heard Joe and Richard speaking about the work of the Damilola Trust, so thank you very much on that. There is, however, an underlying factor that is intrinsic to our freedom, safety, security and well-being, no matter where our community is in the world, and that is global economic justice. Until everyone everywhere has the opportunity to work at a decent occupation for decent remuneration, we will not combat the previously mentioned ills, nor will we combat terrorism, discrimination or political problems such as environmental destruction. The self-respect and empowerment that comes from being able to achieve a decent living standard through a fair day's work must never be underestimated, and nor must fair trade's potential to open the doors for that to happen. I'm not pretending that fair trade is the end game. It isn't. It's the beginning point for global economic justice. The end point is where all trade worldwide is equally fair to everyone, even those buried deep in the supply chain or casualties of political trade deals. But until that happens, it's beholden on us as Co-op members to demand as many opportunities as possible to support fair trade in our daily shop. And that is what this motion asks for, our businesses to work with the fair trade movement to make real fair trade shopping easier for us in our Co-op, and to make it easier for everyone to discern bona fide fair trade produce in every shop in the UK, Co-op or not. Because we need this to happen for our local communities as much as those distant producers need it to happen for theirs. I ask you to support this motion and then to support fair trade every time you shop. Thank you.
Sue?
Thanks, Alan. On behalf of the National Members Council, I would like to propose our motion, which is motion 11 in your book, on responsible sourcing to this AGM for the approval of our members. The purpose of this council motion is twofold. Firstly, to acknowledge and applaud our achievements today in reducing the impact of our business operations on the natural world, which have been substantial. And secondly, it's also to challenge the board and the business leaders to accelerate and do even more, including sort of more ambitious greenhouse gas emission reductions, and also looking at developing new digital tools that measure the environmental and ecological footprint of our Co-op products and resources. As has been mentioned, is up on the signage there, we're celebrating 175 years. If we want to be around for another 175 years, we need to have more responsible sourcing. So I'd like to urge this meeting and members to support our motion.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, so we'll now go to the voting. So we'll as we normally do, we'll vote on each motion, and after each motion we'll show you the results. And as you know, it always takes a few seconds for the thing to cogitate it through, and it'll just show percentages at this point because that's easier to calculate and get it through faster. But the scrutineers will do their normal thing. Then we'll put up all on the website all the exact numbers and notes so we get on the back of that. Once again, we've got one of our electronic devices, and so has everybody got one? If you haven't got one, put your hand up and we'll get you one. We've got the electoral reform services of the independent scrutineers here as well, so they'll scrutinise the votes. And all the members who voted online or by post will add those to the numbers when the results are announced. So, and everything is basically poll vote, simple majority. So we have to test the system, as always, and as always, we always have these AGMs on cup final day, and so there's a very simple question. It's probably got a very simple answer too, but it is, so do you think Manchester City will win the FA Cup final at Watford? Is 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3, I don't really know. Pause for 5 seconds. So that voting should be closed. And then in a minute, we'll get the result. Oh, closer than you thought, really, isn't it? Closer than you thought. Okay, well, right, so let's move on to our motions then. So the first motion is receiving the annual report and accounts for the period ending to the 5th of January 2019. And again, it's 1 for 4, 2 against, 3 withheld. So if you could vote now. Voting is now closed, and we should see the results behind us. Okay, so 98.664, 1.34, so the motion is carried. Now, motion number 2, which is the Director's Remuneration Report for ending the 5th of January 2019. Same rules, 1 for, 2 against, 3 withheld. If you could vote now. Okay, the vote's closed. And we should get a result. Okay, so motion carried 89, well, 90-10, basically the way to think about it. Thank you, that's carried. 3 is on approval of the executive pay policy. Same again, 1 for, 2 against, 3 withheld. If you could vote now. Okay, the vote's closed. (84-15). So that motion is carried. The next motion is my re-election, which I can't do. So, Christopher, are you going to do this?
I knew I had some role. This motion is to re-elect Alan Layton as independent non-executive director, same as before. Yes, 1 for yes, 2 for against, and 3 to withheld.
It's always quite tricky sitting up here.
The poll is now closed.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. That motion is carried. I've still got to find out who this 5% is. No, motion 5 is to re-elect Christopher Kelly as the independent non-executive, but also as the SID. So again, same rules, 1 for, 2 against, 3 were withheld. If you could vote now. Okay, vote's now closed. Good, that's also carried. Well done, Chris. Motion number 6 is to elect Rahul, who is our latest INED. I was down at Rahul in the front there. We brought Rahul on the board because his experience really is in the digital world, which is really important to us. So if you can vote on Rahul, 1 for, 2 against, 3 withheld. And if you could vote now. Okay, voting's closed. That's good. Thank you very much. Carried. You're back in, Rahul. That's good. Motion 7 is the reappointment of our auditors, Ernst & Young. Again, same principle, 1, 2, 3. If you could vote now. Voting is closed. Good. Okay, thank you very much. Motion is carried. Then motion 8 is our board and council motion on political donations. Again, 1, 2, 3. If you could vote now. Okay, votes closed. Okay, 78-21, motion's carried. Then the next two motion is the joint motion on the council and the board about safer colleagues, safer communities, a lot of what we've heard today, and particularly from Joe and from our colleagues. So again, 1, 2, 3, if you could vote. And now. Okay, voting's closed. Brilliant, excellent, excellent. Then motion 10 is the fair trade motion that Barbara offered up on behalf of the council. So again, 1, 2, 3, if we could do this. If you could vote now. Voting's closed. Good, excellent, thank you very much. That motion's carried. And the final motion, again from the council that Sue put forward on responsible sourcing. 1, 2, 3, again, if you could vote now. Voting's closed. Good, brilliant as well. So that's gone through too. Excellent. Oh, good. So thank you very much for that. That's all of the voting on all of the motions. So I'm now just going to hand back for Steve. Steve promised early on to doing a quick run through of all the stuff that's coming down the track. I guess this will go on for about another half an hour, and then we'll be done and ready for our lunch. So Steve, let me hand back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. So, for the last 3 years, our nation's been distracted by Brexit. Businesses like ours have been preparing for all possible scenarios. A soft Brexit, a hard Brexit, and perhaps even no Brexit. But whatever happens, we'll deal with it. And we'll protect our members and our customers as best as we can. But there's a much bigger fallout from Brexit that can't be solved easily as stockpiling toilet rolls or switching fresh food to tinned alternatives. Brexit has exposed very deep divisions in our society that cut across all traditional party political lines and old class divides. The debates in national life has become harsher, it's become coarser in tone and less tolerant. It's brought to the fore resentments and anxieties which has been brewing for some time. And away from Westminster, Brexit is not about backstops, or Norway Plus, or a people's vote. For most people around the UK, it's about feelings and it's about emotions. It's about identity, about what we control over our lives and what control we have in our neighbourhoods and how hard it is to make ends meet. About what's going to happen to our kids in the future. And it's about so many things that simply feel unfair too much of the time. Now, our co-op was founded in the times of similar needs 175 years ago, by a group of people who cared about their community and wanted to change the things for the better. They saw the answer in cooperation, and indeed, in today's uncertain world, we need to cooperate more than ever. Our values and our ways of working have never been more relevant and never been more urgent than I think they are today. But it's up to us to prove to the outside world that we have the answer. We need to kickstart a new generation of cooperation today. We have to speak in a language that everyone can understand, and we need to stop talking to ourselves and instead speak up loudly and proudly to the whole nation about our difference. We have to act on those issues that matter to people and that may feel uncomfortable at times, but that's what great leadership is all about. We have to show that change can happen for the better. If we do that, then people will come our way. They will join us, and they will join in with everything that we set out to achieve. If we can do this, the nation will not see us just as a business or a corporate charity, but as a movement for change. With the challenges that we're facing, nothing less is required of us. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to help make our communities more resilient, more self-confident, prouder and stronger than ever before. And we're going to use cooperation as the tool to achieve it. We began work on this last year by speaking to many of the communities we've been supporting and by listening to their feedback from our members. In particular, I'd like to thank those council members in the room who've given us their support and helped us to shape our thinking. And one important outcome of this work has been the creation of the Community Wellbeing Index, which covers every community across the country. It's a free online tool for everyone to use, and it brings a picture of the overall well-being of your community by measuring things like education, employment and community spaces. If you haven't used it yet, just take a look. Just Google Co-op Wellbeing and then enter your postcode. You'll find some really fascinating data about where you live. We originally created this tool to help us focus on targeting our community work, and the research has given us 3 key priorities: community spaces, physical and mental well-being, and education and skills. And I'm now going to invite Director of Community Rebecca Birkbeck to tell you more about the significance in these 3 areas. Rebecca.
Thank you, Steve, and hi everyone. As Steve said, a lot of thinking and research has gone into selecting these focus areas, both from the Wellbeing Index and from the over 10,000 members who joined in to give us their views. We're also aligning the work of our member pioneers behind this plan. And as part of that, I'm really excited to announce today that applications are now open for our local community fund to support projects in these areas. As most of you know, this is the fund created by the members' 1% reward. So, let me tell you a little bit more about why these 3 areas are so important. Health matters, both physical and mental, are becoming more urgent and better understood, with mental health diagnoses rising, particularly in young people. Our council are fully supportive and have previously encouraged us to address this. Our Wellbeing Index data shows high levels of prescriptions relating to depression, diabetes, and obesity in some areas of the UK, and nearly half of all adults believe that they've had a diagnosable mental health condition at some point in their lives. We also know through our work to tackle loneliness that mental and physical health issues are a huge driver of social exclusion and therefore isolation. As Steve and Joe reminded us earlier, the cooperative movement has always made education and skills a priority. Through our co-op academies, we're focusing on education. Through our community work, we want to focus on skills. Today, we know that training and learning after people have left school continues to decrease each year. In addition, many of the current workforce don't have the digital skills required by most vacancies. 9 out of 10 employers are already struggling to recruit the skilled staff they need. And there's another issue that's fast emerging, and that's the automation of jobs across all sectors of the economy. Honestly, the impact of this is actually hard to predict, but it could be staggering. It means that we need to think about lifelong learning and how to help people reach their full potential. Help them understand how to respond to the cooperative values of self-help and self-responsibility. Now, I've left community spaces until last because this is the issue where we want to get moving first. And when we talk about community spaces, we're including public spaces both indoor and outside. We've heard about it this morning. We know that public spaces play a vital role in the social life of communities. You cannot hope to bring communities together unless they have places and spaces to meet. Our Community Wellbeing Index has shown us how strongly people value community spaces and see them as critical to their well-being. Sadly, local authority cuts are forcing councils to make very tough decisions. Balancing the books means they're selling off public buildings and parks at a rate of more than 4,000 every year. And let me give you some examples of what that number means in practice. Between 2014 and 2018, local councils closed 373 playgrounds across the UK. And it's predicted that the number will reach 500 by the end of this year. Taking away these community-owned spaces causes people to withdraw from their community, driving them to social isolation and loneliness, and as we saw earlier, in some cases, crime. This puts additional pressure on the services councils and government are struggling to fund. It's another reason why we're excited to work with Steel Warriors. Steve mentioned them earlier, and it's a charity which understands the role that community spaces can play in making our communities safer. But, importantly, its work also helps people to learn new skills and improve their mental and physical well-being. In the coming months, we'll formally launch our commitment to public spaces and ask our members to join us in highlighting the benefits of local community spaces and the impact where they are lacking. We will use this insight to influence local and national policy alongside other like-minded organisations. Our target will be that by 2022, 2,000 community spaces will have been saved or protected with the Co-op's help. And we know that our members are going to be a huge part in driving this. And one of the reasons we are so confident we can do this is because we can activate the huge asset of our member pioneers. We've heard a lot about them already this morning. We've got 300 of them across the country. It's a unique role that's designed to be a catalyst for energising local communities, helping people get involved and cooperate. And I know we have some of our member pioneers here today, and I was hoping you could all stand up, please. Give everyone a wave. They love talking about what they're up to. Please have a chat to them and ask them about the kind of work they're doing to bring people and communities together. We will have 1,500 member pioneers in place by the end of 2020, and we are recruiting as we speak. So we're calling this next phase of our community work Cooperate 2022, and you'll be hearing and seeing a lot more about it in the coming months. And now let me hand you back to Steve.
So we now have a clear idea of what matters to people. But how do we help them to cooperate in a practical way? How do we give them the tools that they need so that a community space can be saved, or actually can be turned into a fun run, or can be arranged for something else? We know that there's no shortage of goodwill, but how can it be harnessed in the most powerful of ways? What's holding them back is quite simple. Although there are tools out there, they're hard to find, they're difficult to use, and they're not connected to one another. We want to change that by creating the one place to go to make cooperation happen. We're now live, testing our ideas down the road in Stretford with an early version of something that we're hoping to launch nationally next year. It's called Cooperate, obviously. Take a look at this video.
Introducing Cooperate, an online tool built by Co-op for communities across the UK. Right now, Cooperate looks like this. It's an early version built by our team in Federation that helps people in Stretford to find out what's happening in their community. As you can see here, with a couple of taps, you can see events and activities that benefit the local community. An easy way to start cooperating in Stretford. It's important that we don't assume what our wonderfully diverse communities across the country need. We're making sure that we're building Cooperate cooperatively. We're working with amazing people across Stretford to help inform what we should include in the product and how it should work. We've talked to a range of people, volunteers, organisers, those who are thinking of getting involved, and even those that need some convincing.
I think one of the biggest challenges was trying to get volunteers, trying to get people on board. I think if we had more connections to other groups, that would have been really, really good.
Because I feel that it's something that communities need, you know, they need to have one place that they can go to find out what's happening in their local community, so I think it's absolutely awesome.
It's wrong to think of Cooperate as just a website or app. It's a platform, and the useful content and tools can be used in other ways. For example, the team gathered events and activities from Stretford's community notice board for the What's Happening section. They're normally hard to find, poorly maintained, and when brought together contain a real diverse range of opportunities. We can connect Cooperate to digital screens in Stretford Moor, again making it easier for the community to cooperate. But this is only the start. We're starting small, learning and iterating just like any modern digital product. Our next tool will make it easier to connect potential volunteers with groups that need help. We've learned that organisers struggle to find and manage volunteers, and that potential volunteers are willing but often fearful of overcommitment. We're currently testing our first designs of this in Stretford. Cooperate has huge potential, but it's important that we work together with communities to build tools that are useful. Where others have failed in doing this is by creating national, one-size-fits-all products and have no physical presence in the community. From what we've already heard, we can see a world where Cooperate grows to include a tool that makes it easy for people to club together financially to reach a goal, like a digital whip round. A tool to help people create and form local groups to find other people nearby who can team up and prove the old saying, many hands make light work. A tool where local people can come together and campaign to take a stand on something that matters to all of them. Need a space to meet up? Find Your Space can help you find a local community space that's available when you need it. Cooperate, the one place to go to make things happen in your community.
Now this is going to be a unique tool that brings together digital and physical space, and we'll use it to build a national network of cooperation. It's all about making it easier to cooperate in the 21st century. We're aiming to be live in 5 different communities this year, so watch this space. Now, when you bring everything together that we've been speaking about this morning, from our strengthened businesses to our strengthened communities, you can see that we're not running out of ideas or ambition. Our challenge, however, is making it known. We need to make sure that everybody knows about the things that we do and why we do them, and why you do and what you do every day in coming to choose your co-op. To make our message clearer, we need to cut through the noise and the clutter. And we have to present ourselves not just as a food business or funerals or insurance or legal services, but as one co-op society that thinks and acts in one way, a way that changes lives for the better. And when we talk about academies or community causes or member pioneers, we want people to see these things as things that we do, just as much as selling insurance or arranging funerals. We have to make crystal clear that connection between the products and the services that we sell and the good that we do. And we have to tell that story with passion and conviction. And we want that message to be clear and simple. So from today, we're adding some important words beneath our iconic cloverleaf logo. Co-op. It's what we do. Co-op. It's what we do. But of course, we have to back these words up with evidence, and thankfully there's no shortage of that. We have to show it day in and day out as we talk to our members and customers and to the wider public. And it starts tonight. For the first time in a national advertising campaign, we're going to make that clear link between the products and the services that we sell and the good that they can do when you buy them. This evening, in the ad breaks for Britain's Got Talent, this is what millions of viewers will see.
Sports update. Football first, and after a great set of matches over the
What's that, Jim? I'm on mustard.
When our members choose Co-op Food, a share of the money goes to funding local causes in your community. It's not a one-off. It's what we do.
Ted, do you want a biscuit?
When you choose a co-op funeral, some of the money goes towards funding good things, like Co-op Academy schools. It's not a gimmick, it's what we do.
Busy. We'll find a space.
When you choose to buy Co-op car insurance, some of the money pays for Co-op member pioneers, who help organise community projects and events. It's not a token gesture, it's what we do.
It's what we do, and we can prove it again and again and again. And we'll be showing these adverts in cinemas across the country. You'll see the messages in plenty of other places too. So this year we're focusing on making sure people start to know about our difference. It's the start of that journey towards a new movement of cooperation. The story we'll tell about ourselves will show people that we are modern, that we are relevant, and that we are inclusive. And this isn't just a one-off. We've got a plan to develop this message over the next few years. And once people know about our difference, we'll invite them to join us and cooperate to make great things happen. And as you heard Nick say earlier, we're getting better and better at giving our members a way to join in and make an active contribution to the all-year-round things that we hold dear. We'll show the nation that sprinkling some cooperation is the only antidote to a broken Britain. We'll show people that we can make change happen for the better and that our co-op can be at the heart of everything. Cooperation's always been a good response in troubled times. Cooperating puts you on the side of ordinary people. Cooperating is the answer because it's tough, it's bold, it's creative, and most importantly, at a time of great challenge and indeed crisis, cooperating makes common sense. Thank you for coming to our AGM today. Thank you for caring about our communities and caring about the world that will pass on to the next generation. Co-op, it's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks the team to pull that stuff together. You know, we started out, when we started out 5 years ago, you know, the whole concept really was to create our businesses in such a way that they were leading in what they did, but more importantly to join everything up and to create, you know, what the pioneers were, and they were a movement. And, you know, for us to get to this stage is just the start of it. But until we fixed all of the commercial side of what we do, we didn't earn the right to be able to do this. We believe we've now earned that right. We've tested lots of things. We do tons of stuff in the community. And so, you know, this is the start of the next 175 years. But this 175 years, we want every year to be that we're a movement and not have the pauses that we've had in the past. And I have to remember, you know, we're all a family. This is all about us. This is all about, you know, our members. You know, we have no ego. We have, you know, lots of humility, and that's what makes this so powerful. And that's what only we can do, is what we do. So thanks very much for your time today. We know you have to, you know, come up here on a Saturday, and please join us in the marketplace where you'll see some of these things in action where you've not seen before, and get something to eat. And have a safe trip home. Thank you very much.